Chapter 1686. Actually, at that time, if Noah had directly told Xuanai that he was the sorcerer of fairy tale, then this girl would not have suffered so much for 7 years. Unfortunately, at that time, Xuanai was only a child who had just turned 10 years old. If he told a child that he was a magic shooter from fairy tale, the child would probably have a confused look on his face, right? After all, could you expect a child who was just over 10 years old to understand how great fairy tale was and what kind of existence it was? Because of this, in order to let the young Xuanai understand what kind of guild she was in, Noah said that he was the sorcerer of the strongest guild in the Fiori kingdom. In the end, because of this sentence, Xuanai, who desperately wanted to get close to Noah, went further and further away. She then joined the saber-tooth that rose after the fairy tale fell from grace. If this could not be said to be fate playing tricks on people, then what could be called fate playing tricks on people? Although he did not know how Xuanai had been all these years, but looking at her unusual persistence on the first day they met, and now sitting on the ground crying weakly, Noah could imagine how painful Xuanai's heart was. Thus, Noah could only remain silent. Because Noah and Xuanai's conversation was not very loud, there were so many spectators present, and naturally no one could hear the conversation between the two. However, everyone clearly saw Xuanai's sad and crying appearance. Thus, everyone understood and shut their mouths, giving Noah and Xuanai some time. It was not that everyone here was so considerate, but after the competition, the contestants would have a short exchange after the competition, which was not a strange thing. Some people would appreciate each other after the battle. Some people would hate each other after the battle. Some people would talk to each other after the battle. Some people would ask each other to come again after the battle. That was the fun of the competition. Thus, everyone present tacitly gave Noah and Xuanai some time. Even Chapati, who was on the rostrum, did not speak anymore. However, this period of time could not be too long. No one knew if Noah had realized this, but he suddenly spoke. "Let's play fairy tale." Xuanai raised her head. Her cheeks were wet and her eyes were red and swollen. She stared blankly at Noah. Clearly, Xuanai never thought that Noah would say this. In front of Xuanai, Noah cast his gaze on her and said, "Actually, things aren't as complicated as you think, and there's no need for you to be so clumsy. If you really want to stand in front of me and tell me that you're a powerful magic shooter, then you've already done it. I've said it before, you're very strong. Even in fairy tale, you can be ranked in the top 10. With this level of strength, I believe that no one would deny that you're a powerful magic shooter." Noah's voice clearly entered Xuanai's ears. "And if you want to join the strongest guild in the Fiori kingdom, then just join fairy tale. After this year's great demon battle arts competition, we'll definitely become the strongest. That way, everything will go back to square one. Even if we can't eliminate the pain you've suffered in the past 7 years, at least we can redeem the regret that you wish to redeem. To tell you the truth, after the great demon battle arts competition, I'll be inheriting the position of the guild leader of fairy tale." Noah smiled slightly. "At that time, if you can join my guild, I think I'll be very happy." After leaving these words, Noah directly turned around, and under Xuanai's gaze, he slowly left in the direction of fairy tale's contestant area. Looking at Noah's gradually disappearing figure, Xuanai was stunned. Because that back was exactly the same as the last scene that Xuanai saw when she was saved by Noah in the alley 7 years ago. However, that was to be expected. For Xuanai, Noah saved her when she was a child and changed her fate. That was something that happened 7 years ago. But for Noah, that was only about half a year ago. In half a year's time, Noah naturally wouldn't have changed that much. His back was naturally exactly the same as 7 years ago when Xuanai knew him. This made Xuanai feel as if she had returned to square one. Noah was telling Xuanai this. It wasn't too late to start afresh. As long as Xuanai joined fairy tale, she would be able to do it. "Do you want to join fairy tale?" Looking at Noah's gradually disappearing figure, Xuanai fell into silence. And when Noah returned to the contestant area, he was greeted with Myra's gentle smile. "You've worked hard." Noah shook his head, reached out, and hugged his fiancée. His heart was calm. In the duel portion of the Great Demon Battle Arts competition, Besides the battle between Noah and Xuanai, there were 3 more matches. In the first match, a guy named Black Snake from Raventail fought against a sorcerer named Lamia Scale. Black Snake was victorious. In the second match, Kagura from Mermaid Heel fought against Jenny from Blue Pegasus. Kagura won. As for the third match, it was naturally the battle between Fairy Tail Team A and Cotter Cerberus. And the contestant for Fairy Tail Team A was Elusha. His opponent was an S-ranked sorcerer from the Cotter Cerberus. This match was quite interesting. Both sides were active S-rank wizards in the guild, their strength was almost on par, and it was hard to tell who would win. In the end, Elusha won by a narrow margin and won the match. After this day of competition and duels, the 8 teams obtained different scores, and the rankings changed a lot. First place, Fairy Tail A Team, 26p. Second place, Fairy Tail B Team, 24p. Third place, Raventail, 24p. Fourth place, Sabertooth, 20p. Fifth place, Mermaid Heel, 17p. Sixth place, Blue Pegasus, 15p. Seventh place, Lamia Scale, 12p. Eighth place, Cotter Cerberus, 10p. Finally, Fairy Tail jumped to the top of the list, and the 2 teams occupied the first and second place respectively, causing many of the magic shooters in Fairy Tail to shed manly tears on the spot. On the other hand, Sabertooth was pushed out of first place and was even pushed down to fourth place. Not only was it overtaken by Fairy Tail, but it was also overtaken by Raventail. In response, the group of sorcerers from Sabertooth remained silent as they left the venue. Noah just happened to notice this scene. Looking at Suno, who was following behind Sting, Logue, Lucifer, and Alyaga with her head lowered, her expression completely indiscernible, Noah thought of the personality of Sabertooth's leader, Germain, and narrowed his eyes slightly. Chapter 1687. Following the perfect ending of the second day of the Great Demon Showdown, night gradually fell. However, at this moment, in one of the corridors of Kroka's palace, the captain of the Sakura Knights, Alcardios, was walking forward with powerful footsteps. Taking a closer look, not only was Alcardios' expression rather solemn, but there was also a faint trace of shock in his eyes. Recalling the terrifying scene he saw in the venue during the day, Alcardios' expression became more and more dignified, causing his footsteps to quicken. After walking for an unknown period of time, Alcardios arrived in front of a room. Standing at the door, Alcardios took a deep breath, stretched out his hand, and pushed the door open. What appeared before Alcardios was a vast and luxurious room. Moreover, from the layout, it was easy to see that this room belonged to a woman. Under such circumstances, Alcardios walked in without any hesitation. As soon as Alcardios walked into the room, a rather pleasant voice sounded. "You're here, Sir Alcardios." Hearing this, Alcardios stopped and raised his head to look ahead. In the deepest part of the room, in front of a window, there was a young girl with her back facing Alcardios. Bathed in the moonlight, the scene was extremely beautiful. It was a beautiful young girl wearing a gorgeous dress with emerald green waist-length hair. The young girl slowly turned her head, revealing her delicate and pretty face to Alcardios. She looked straight at him. "I knew that you would definitely come." Alcardios lowered his head and bowed to the young lady who was much younger than him and looked much weaker than he was, as if he was a subject. "I have something very important to report, Princess." The young girl was the princess of the Fiori Kingdom Emerald. Emerald seemed to have already known what Alcardios wanted to say and closed her eyes. "Sir, you want to talk about the person who had an amazing performance in today's Great Demon Showdown, right? Princess already knows?" Alcardios was startled at first, then nodded and said in an extremely serious tone. "Since the princess already knows, then I might as well say it directly. That man is very dangerous. I know, not only I know, I believe that those who saw the power of that man today will clearly know how dangerous he is." Emerald's expression became serious. "Fortunately, we did not become enemies with that lord." "I don't think so, Princess." Alcardios immediately retorted. "Don't forget, our solar eclipse plan needs the power of archmages, and the two archmages that appeared in this great demon battle exhibition are more or less related to that man. If we plan to make a move on those two archmages, I believe that man won't let it go. I understand your concern, Sir Alcardios, but you are mistaken. Emerald shook her head. We do need the power of the Archmage to carry out the solar eclipse plan, but we don't need to touch that lord's companions, do we? You don't need to touch that man's companions? Alcardios was stunned as he frowned. Princess's meaning is? In short, I have my own plans, Sir Alcardios doesn't need to worry. Emerald pursed her lips as she evaded the question. Right now, the Great Demon Battle Exhibition is only on the second day, and there are still 3 days before it ends. Our plan will only be carried out after the Great Demon Battle Exhibition ends. Right now, we only need to observe for the time being. Hearing this, Alcardios' frown deepened, but he didn't say anything else and only asked a question. Then what should I do next? Sir Alcardios only needs to be responsible for maintaining the order during the Great Demon Battle Exhibition, that's enough. Emerald said. As for the other matters, we can wait until the time is right. Right now, we must not act recklessly, especially towards that man with astonishing power. We must be careful and not offend him. Yes. Alcardios lowered his head. Then I will take my leave first. Fei Chui nodded and asked Alcardios to leave the room. The dusky room suddenly returned to its silent state. Emerald had been staring at the door of her room, and after a while, she suddenly spoke. Did you hear what I said just now? Emerald's sudden words clearly echoed throughout the entire room. Not long after, the shadow of the girl bathed in the moonlight suddenly distorted. The distorted shadow slowly grew taller, gradually converging into a human figure that appeared in the room. The person who came out from the shadow was a man. He was wearing a rather gorgeous costume, with half black and half gray hair tied into a ponytail and a black tattoo around his left eye. His whole body was surrounded by an ominous aura. Emerald looked at the man who came out from her shadow, and her eyes became sharp. You didn't mention to me that in the guild called Fairy Tale, there is actually such a powerful sorcerer. Hearing Emerald's words, the man slowly raised his head, revealing a pair of charming eyes under the moonlight. Then, the man's mouth curved and said, "Whether there is such a person or not, is it important?" Emerald didn't answer, but her eyes became sharper and sharper. Facing Emerald's sharp eyes, the man acted as if he didn't feel anything, and said very disapprovingly, "That man is indeed very powerful. I'm afraid he is the most powerful person I have ever seen, but in the end he is only in the realm of human. Do you think that person alone can replace the solar eclipse plan and save this country?" Emerald was speechless. In response, the man's smile became more and more intense. "Princess, please don't forget, we need to save this country, and even save the world. To do this, the solar eclipse plan is the only way. We have been planning this for 7 years, and now, because of a person who suddenly appeared, you want to cancel the plan?" Emerald lowered her head and softly said, "I don't want to cancel the solar eclipse plan. In that case, it doesn't matter whether that person exists or not." The man shrugged. "The reason why I didn't say it is because I don't think it is necessary to mention it. Princess only needs to implement the solar eclipse plan. Whether or not we will implement the solar eclipse plan will depend on the final result of the great demonic martial arts competition." Emerald raised her eyes and looked at the evil man. "If the result of the great demonic martial arts competition is as you predicted, then I will start the solar eclipse plan. If not, then I am sorry, I will not use this plan. That is enough." The man suddenly smiled. "Because, in the end, the result will be as I said." Leaving these words, the man's figure suddenly turned into a shadow, merged with Emerald's shadow, and disappeared. Looking at the man who disappeared into her shadow, Emerald was silent. In the courtyard under the moonlight, a shadow suddenly appeared without any warning and turned into the evil man's appearance. However, the smile on the man's face disappeared little by little, and his expression became a bit ugly. "I have never told you that there is such a person in Fairy Tale?" The man gritted his teeth and said, "Isn't that natural? From what I know of Fairy Tale, there is no such person. Who is that person? Why does he have such powerful strength? The man's face was full of uncertainty. No, that guy is definitely a variable. I have to find a way to deal with him, and don't let him ruin the final result of the great demonic martial arts competition. After saying that, the man turned into a shadow again and disappeared. Chapter 1688. At the same time, in the Saber-Tooth Inn, an atmosphere even heavier than the one in the palace was pervading in a spacious room that resembled a hall. Germain sat on the seat in the deepest part of the room with his eyes closed and his arms crossed. There was no expression on his face. However, Germain's body was emitting waves of mana that were visible to the naked eye. They rose from his body like mist and shook the surrounding air, causing the atmosphere to become somewhat chaotic. Looking at Germain in such a state, the archmages of Saber-Tooth, who were lined up neatly like an army, did not even dare to breathe loudly. Their faces were already covered in cold sweat. As for Justin, Logue, Lucifer, Alyaga, and Xuanai, who were lined up at the front, they lowered their heads and remained silent. No one knew how long this scene lasted. Until a certain moment, Germain's voice sounded like a tiger's roar. Fourth place. That low voice made everyone's heartbeat quicken slightly. Fourth place. Germain repeated and opened his eyes. He stared at Justin and the others who were lined up at the front. His voice was low and terrifying. You actually reduced my Saber-Tooth to fourth place. Tell me, how should I punish you? Trash? Justin, Logue, Lucifer, and Alyaga all closed their eyes and were speechless. Obviously, the four of them chose not to face Germain's anger head-on. Xuanai also did not say anything. However, Xuanai was not afraid of Germain's anger. Instead, she kept thinking about what Noah had said to her, and thousands of thoughts flashed through her mind. Germain, who did not know what Xuanai was thinking, slowly leaned back on his seat and said expressionlessly, "Although I've said it many times, I still have to tell you that my guild doesn't need trash who only know how to fail. Only those who continuously win are qualified to join my guild and become my army. So, you should know what I'll do, right?" No one answered, because everyone was very clear that at this time, Germain would do something cruel. Justin, Germain suddenly said, "Is there anything you want to say?" "I don't have anything to say," Sting said after a moment of silence. "I have indeed fallen to last place in today's competition. I have tarnished the reputation of Saber-Tooth as the strongest. No matter what kind of punishment you give me, I will accept it." Steen. Rector couldn't help but call out softly, as if he couldn't bear to see what kind of punishment Steen would suffer. He turned his head away with a worried expression. Germain, on the other hand, shifted his gaze to Sting and snorted coldly. "You're very smart. You didn't make any unnecessary explanations. If you dared to come up with any excuses, I would definitely punish you without hesitation. Seeing that you didn't lose in a head-on confrontation, I'll give you another chance. However, this is the only chance. Do you understand?" Si Ting lowered his head and answered. At this moment, Jia Man looked at the silent Xuanai, and his tone became icy cold. "Xuanai, do you have anything to say?" Hearing this, before Xuanai could react, the others had already silently sighed in their hearts. Germain had just said that because Sting didn't lose in a head-on confrontation, he would give him a chance. However, Xuanai had lost in an individual battle and directly lost the points of the duel. In this way, Xuanai's fate was already obvious. For Germain, who had supreme strength, Xuanai's failure was enough reason to expel him from the guild. No matter what Xuanai said, he shouldn't be able to avoid being expelled from the guild, right? Even if Xuanai's opponent was Noah Dole, who defeated Jura with less than 1% of his strength and had the terrifying strength to cut through stars, it would still be the same. In this regard, Xuanai was silent for a moment before he spoke. "I do have something to say." Everyone was shocked. This Xuanai, was he planning to go against the president's words again? One must know that just now, Germain had also said that if he dared to come up with any excuses, he would not hesitate to punish him. Undoubtedly, Xuanai knew this. What else did Xuanai want to say? Could it be that because she knew that she couldn't stay in the guild, Xuanai began to give up on herself? This was the thought in everyone's mind. On the other hand, Germain was still expressionless. Then let me see what else you want to say. Xuanai closed her eyes slightly. At this moment, in Xuanai's mind, only Noah's back appeared. Looking at his back, Xuanai really wanted to reach out to him. Because she wanted to keep him. Because she wanted to be close to him. No matter what, Xuanai wanted to be with him. This thought was unprecedentedly strong. This was because Xuanai still remembered that in the arena, Noah had said this to her. If you wish to join the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom, then just join Fairy Tail. After this year's great demon battle exhibition, we will definitely become the strongest. Then, everything will go back to square one. Even if we can't eliminate the pain you've suffered in the past 7 years, at least we can salvage the regret you wish to salvage. That's right. All he had to do was add in Fairy Tail and everything would go back to square one. Xuanai only wanted to join the same guild as Noah and tell Noah that she had become a powerful magic shooter. Now, as long as Xuanai joined Fairy Tail, then her wish that was 7 years late would come true. Thinking of this, Xuanai suddenly opened her eyes and looked at Germain. I want to leave Sabertooth and join Fairy Tail. When this sentence reverberated throughout the vast hall, everyone present was dumbfounded, including Sting, Logue, Lucifer, and Olyaga. Germain's eyes suddenly widened as she spoke in a low voice in disbelief. What did you say? I want to leave Sabertooth. Xuanai met Germain's gaze without any fear and said resolutely, because I want to join Fairy Tail. Everyone suddenly fell silent. An extremely heavy and terrifying tension suddenly spread in the air. Everyone looked at Xuanai in disbelief. No one would have thought that Xuanai would say such a thing under such circumstances. Rector couldn't help but take a step back as he muttered, "She's dead." Almost as soon as he finished speaking, an astonishing oppressive aura burst out from Germain's body and swept across the surroundings. Good. Very good. Germain said in a low voice, finally with anger in her voice. Xuanai, can I take it that you're telling me that my guild can't compare to that trash guild? Germain originally planned to ruthlessly expel Xuanai. Not only that, but Germain also planned to humiliate Xuanai, who had tarnished the name of the strongest guild, before kicking her out. In the end, Germain did not expect that Xuanai would take the initiative to ask to leave. This made Germain feel that her guild had been humiliated by Xuanai, and the anger in her heart rose sharply. However, in the face of Germain's anger, Xuanai fearlessly looked at her and said such a sentence. Yes, this Sabertooth definitely can't compare to the guild that the Lord is in. At least, that's the case for me. That's right. To Xuanai, as long as it was a guild with Noah, then no matter what kind of guild it was, it could not compare to her. Because Xuanai only wanted to join a guild with Noah. Unfortunately, these words from the bottom of her heart completely ignited the ruthlessness in Germain's heart. Chapter 1689. Wang. Instantly, under the horrified gazes of all the magic shooters in Sabertooth, Germain, who was sitting on his seat, burst out with powerful magical energy and slowly stood up. Undoubtedly, his movements were rather slow, but it gave off a terrifying feeling of a tiger waking up from its nap and baring its fangs at its prey. Under such a terrifying feeling, all the magic shooters in the room took a step back, sweat dripping down their faces. Only Xuanai, who seemed to have expected this, did not move and face Germain directly, not even taking a step back. Since she had already decided, no matter what the outcome was, Xuanai would not regret it. 7 years ago, she wasn't able to join Noah's guild. As a result, she struggled for several years in the Sabertooth. Yukino didn't want to experience the pain anymore. Hence, this time, Xuanai wanted to fight for her wish. Hence, no matter what, Xuanai would not back down. Hence, while everyone was retreating, Xuanai was the only one who did not. The front of the hall was immediately emptied out, leaving Xuanai alone, facing Germain, who was surging with terrifying magical energy. Germain surged with magical energy, shaking the air as she lifted her feet and walked towards Xuanai step by step. You're just a defeated piece of trash. I haven't even banished you, and you actually dare to quit. You even said that my guild is inferior to a trashy guild that has been at the bottom for thousands of years. Germain walked towards Xuanai step by step, looking at her with eyes full of ruthlessness and even a trace of murderous intent. Who gave you the guts to do that? As Germain approached, the pressure immediately affected Xuanai's body bit by bit. In response, Xuanai only stared at Germain, took a deep breath, and a resolute expression appeared in her eyes. No matter what, I've already decided to quit, Sabertooth. You're no longer my guild leader. If you plan to make a move on me, then I'll definitely retaliate. As she said this, Xuanai stretched out her hands, holding two resplendent golden keys in her hands, and her body also surged with magical energy. Seeing that Xuanai was actually planning to retaliate against Germain, the magic shooters of Sabertooth all looked at Xuanai with pity. That high mage star spirit was absolutely insane. Regardless of whether Xuanai could defeat Germain, even if she could, Xuanai would not be able to leave this hotel. This was because Germain was not the only one in the inn. All the sorcerers from Sabertooth were there as well. Even if Xuanai was very strong and had once fought for the right to appear in the Great Demon Battle exhibition, she had defeated everyone except for Sting, Logue, Lucius, Olyaga, and Miniba. But with Sting, Logue, Lucius, and Olyaga present, Xuanai had absolutely no chance of winning. This girl was undoubtedly looking for death. Even Germain was so angry that he laughed. Counterattack. A mere piece of trash actually wants to counterattack against me? Then let me see to what extent you can counterattack. Germain's body suddenly tensed up. Xuanai, who sensed that it was the precursor to an attack, also tightened her grip on the magic star key. Just as Xuanai was about to fight against the entire Sabertooth, an accident happened. Along with the sound of an explosion, the door of the hall suddenly burst open. A burst of flames and impact blew the entire heavy door away. What happened? The group of Sabertooth's magic shooters turned pale with fright. They hurriedly separated and gathered on both sides, away from the direction of the door. What's wrong? Sting, Logue, Lucifer, and Olyaga all looked at the door in surprise. Germain raised her head and looked over with a fierce expression. Xuanai, who was ready to fight a bloody battle, subconsciously turned her head and looked in the direction of the door that had exploded. In the next moment, the sound of footsteps slowly sounded from the explosion. It was as if a gust of wind suddenly blew through the entire inn, mixed with some magic power, and blew away the explosion and smoke that pervaded the air at the door. A foot suddenly stepped on a piece of debris left behind by the explosion of the door. Under the watchful eyes of all the magic shooters from Sabertooth, the figure gradually walked in. When the appearance of the intruder was revealed in front of everyone's eyes, everyone present sucked in a breath of cold air. Justin, Logue, Lucius, and Olyaga all took a step back with a shocked expression. Among the people present, only Xuanai looked at the person who walked in from the door and couldn't help but cover her mouth. Her eyes, which had not wavered until now, were now filled with waves of emotions. Then, Xuanai called out in excitement and disbelief. Lord Noah? The person who had come was Noah. Stepping on the debris of the door, Noah walked into the gathering place of Sabertooth. His gaze was directed directly at Germain, and a cold light flashed in his deep, dark eyes. Early in the day, Noah had guessed that with Germain's arrogant, conceited, and ruthless character, it was impossible for him to let go of Xuanai's defeat. He would definitely make things difficult for Xuanai and even expel her from the guild. For this reason, Noah directly followed him and hid in the dark, observing the development here. In the end, Noah still underestimated Germain. I originally thought that being expelled from the guild after one defeat was ridiculous enough. I didn't expect that there would be a guild leader who wouldn't allow a member to leave the guild and would even attack a member who wishes to leave the guild. Noah directly ignored the surrounding magic shooters who had a shocked expression and walked straight in the direction of Germain. His gaze was like an arrow shooting at Germain, carrying no emotion in it. As expected, shouldn't we place too much hope on small fries? His emotionless words finally woke everyone up from their stupor. Damn it. Cold sweat broke out on Sting's forehead. How did he come here? Rog, Lucius, and Olga also clenched their fists, but their palms were wet and their hearts were trembling. For Sting and the others who had witnessed the power Noah displayed during the day, Noah was simply the most terrifying existence in the world. Therefore, including the other members, everyone's hearts trembled at this moment, and they continuously retreated, wishing that they could get as far away from Noah as possible. On the contrary, Germain, who did not go to the great demon battle drill to watch the battle today, looked at Noah, who was slowly walking towards him, and narrowed his eyes slightly. "For you." Hearing this, Noah smiled indifferently, but there was no smile in his eyes. "An insignificant member of the so-called trashy guild that you speak of." After saying this, Noah gently raised one of his hands. Clink. Accompanied by a wave of mana, like electric wires, magic patterns extended from Noah's raised arm. During this process, Noah did not stop walking and continued walking towards Germain. "I see you're that Noah Dole?" Germain ignored Noah's approach and coldly said, "You actually dare to intrude into the headquarters of my army? How bold. No wonder this piece of trash who worships you dares to resist me. Very well, let me trample you under my feet, and clearly tell this defeated piece of trash what the consequences of disobeying me are." Germain walked past Xuanai, who had yet to react, and walked towards Noah. "Don't you have a godly blade that can even cut stars? Show it to me." Germain could no longer say the rest of his words. Bang! In the midst of an explosion, Noah's figure suddenly turned into a bullet and violently shot in front of Germain. Chapter 1690. Bang! In that instant, before anyone could react, the ground was stomped into pieces. Noah, who had turned into a bullet, streaked across the air and arrived in front of Germain. A pair of cold eyes were imprinted in Germain's eyes, causing Germain's expression to change drastically. Whoosh! His fist, which was covered with magic veins that looked like electric wires, suddenly blasted out. With a shocking whistling sound, the air trembled as it heavily bombarded Germain's chest. Bang! In the muffled explosion, the terrifying blow that was enough to split mountains directly blasted Germain into the ground. Dong! The shocking force suddenly acted on the ground, causing the ground of the entire hotel to sink abruptly. It was as if the ground had collapsed, layer by layer. Suddenly, the entire ground seemed to have been hit by a meteorite, causing a huge crater to appear. The shocking impact and smoke caused cracks to spread out along the ground like a spider web. Ah! The group of saber-tooth magic shooters let out sorrowful cries as they swayed from side to side amidst the violent shaking. They fell down in disarray, looking extremely miserable. Many of them were even directly blown away by the shocking impact. One by one, they hit the wall and spat out all the air in their lungs. Their heads tilted to one side, and they fainted. Even Sting, Rog, Lucius, and Olga were caught off guard by the sudden impact and vibration. They tried their best to stabilize their bodies, and their faces were full of horror. As for Xuanai, she seemed to be protected by something in the dark and was not affected by the aftermath. She was only startled by the thick smoke and dust that blew away. She hurriedly raised her hands to block in front of her body, blocking the sand and gravel that were flying towards her face. When the impact and the thick smoke and dust finally subsided, the group of saber-tooth magic shooters in the spacious hall of the hotel had already fallen to the ground. They were lying on the ground one by one, softly moaning in pain. These people were not violently blown away, smashed onto the ground, or hit by the gravel that shot out like bullets, causing them to suffer varying degrees of injuries. In the end, there were only 5 people who were able to remain unscathed. They were Sting, Rog, Lucius, Olga, and Xuanai. The 5 of them slowly raised their heads from the arms in front of them and looked forward with lingering fear. The only scene in front of them was a deep collapsed crater. And in the crater, Germain, who had been punched into the ground by Noah. Germain, who was deeply embedded in the ground, violently spat out a mouthful of blood, drenching his face and chest. In front of Germain, Noah turned around and swung his smoking fist forcefully. The magic patterns that spread over it like electric wires immediately dissipated. Then, Noah's sarcastic voice rang out. I don't need to use my heavenly sword of salvation to deal with scum like you, who doesn't know what's good for him, who thinks he's so great. One punch is enough. This sentence caused Jermaine's eyes to widen, and the rage and grievance in his heart surged up in an instant. In the end, in the unimaginable humiliation and rage, Jermaine violently spat out another mouthful of blood. His head tilted to the side, and he also fainted. The entire hall suddenly fell silent. Sting, Rog, Lucius, and Olga looked at Noah with eyes full of fear. Noah glanced at Sting and the others and said indifferently, "Don't worry, I won't touch you. Don't worry, I won't do anything to you. You are all contestants participating in the Great Demon Combat Drill. If I hurt you in private, it might be considered as a violation of the rules and directly disqualification. So you can rest assured." Hearing this, how could Sting and the others still not understand? In the entire Saber-Tooth, only the 4 of them did not suffer any injuries. It was not their luck, but Noah's intention. At this moment, the 4 of them looked at Noah with even more fear in their eyes. Ignoring the fearful gazes of Sting, Rog, Lucius, and Olga, as well as the archmages of Saber-Tooth, lying on the ground and wailing incessantly, Noah turned around and looked at Xuan'ai. At this moment, Xuan'ai seemed to have not reacted to the sudden development of the situation, and her face was blank. Seeing Xuan'ai like this, Noah could not help but smile, and extended a hand towards Xuan'ai's direction. Seeing Noah extend his hand towards her, Xuan'ai could not help but be startled. To this, Noah only looked straight into Xuan'ai's eyes and said this. "What? Don't you plan to go back with me? Go back." Xuan'ai repeated as if she had lost her mind. Noah smiled and said so. "Go back to our fairy tale." Xuan'ai's eyes immediately lit up. Then, as if she was a little timid, she slowly extended her hand and put her hand in Noah's. Noah tightened his grip on Xuan'ai's hand, and with a faint smile on his face, he held the hand of this young girl who had yearned for him for 7 years, turned around, and walked towards the door, leaving the scene. Only Sting, Log, Lucifer, and Olga were left. They looked at the sorcerers of the Saber-Tooth lying on the ground, wailing incessantly. Then, they looked at Jermaine, who was embedded in the ground, covered in blood, and passed out. They fell into silence. It was only at this moment that the 4 of them realized how childish their thoughts were in the past. The strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom? The trashy guild that had been at the bottom for 10,000 years? These 2 concepts, because of the existence of one person, were completely overturned. The former was completely defeated with a casual punch from him. As long as the latter was with him, no matter how trashy, who could look down on them? Just like what Xuan'ai said. No matter how strong Saber-Tooth was, as long as Noah was in the guild, they would not be able to compare. Fairy tale. Just what kind of guild could attract such a frightening existence to protect it? How could that person be so strong? Could they really win against that person and keep their title as the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom? If they couldn't, wouldn't they be chased out one by Jermaine? At this moment, an unprecedented sense of loss attacked Sting, Rog, Lucius, and Olga. At this moment, a somewhat flirtatious voice sounded. "It seems that someone has caused a huge ruckus." Sting and the others were shocked and quickly turned their heads to look at the source of the voice. They saw that beside Jermaine, who was covered in blood, a woman wearing a cheongsam was looking around, her eyes full of sarcasm. The strongest guild was actually taken down by one person. Fortunately, no one found out yet. Otherwise, the entire Fiori Kingdom would laugh at us tomorrow, right? Looking at the woman who suddenly appeared without any warning, Sting and the others exclaimed in surprise. "Miss." Surprisingly, it was Meniba. Ignoring Sting and the others, Meniba lowered her head and looked at Jermaine, who was covered in blood, and fainted. A touch of disdain and sarcasm appeared on her face. "This is the result of the Reign of Terror. What a joke, father." Sting and the others glanced at each other, then moved towards Meniba in unison. "Young miss," Lucifer inquired, "now what should we do?" It's just that someone is looking for trouble. As the contestants, you just need to continue the competition. Miniba sneered. But I didn't expect Xuan to betray us. Let me take her place. The others could only nod. Chapter 1691. Ahem. In Fairy Tales Inn, in front of all the members, Noah coughed and said, "Well, that's how it is. From today onwards, Xuan will officially be a member of our guild." Hearing this, the group of Fairy Tales magic shooters first looked at each other in dismay, then turned their heads and looked at Noah's side. There, Xuan no longer had the straightforwardness and strength that she showed before. Her delicate face carried traces of nervousness. Under everyone's gaze, she bent down and bowed deeply. "I am the newcomer, Xuan Argulia. Please give me some pointers." At this time, Xuan's heart was filled with nervousness and apprehension. Because after bringing Xuan here, Noah did not give any explanation at all. He just directly told the members of Fairy Tale that from today onwards, Xuan would be a member of the guild, and that was it. In other words, almost everyone present did not know why Noah suddenly brought Xuan back, and brought the magic shooter of Sabertooth who had beaten Fairy Tale so badly yesterday into the guild. So, how could Xuan not be nervous? After all, Xuan had publicly tried to poach Noah from the guild in front of everyone in Fairy Tale several times. She had also repeatedly said that Fairy Tale was not as good as Sabertooth. Even today and yesterday, she still represented Sabertooth in the competition. Bringing such a person into the guild without any explanation, and even allowing him to join the guild, who wouldn't be the first to criticize him. At least, that was what Xuan thought. Unfortunately, in the next moment, Xuan was completely dumbfounded. She saw a group of Fairy Tale's magic shooters suddenly gathered around Xuan, surrounding this young girl, and began to make a ruckus. "But there's actually a new member. And such a cute girl. How many years has it been since a new member joined our guild? This is great. Hey, can I call you Kuno-chan? If you don't say anything, I'll take it as a yes." The noise and enthusiasm from the surroundings made Xuan, who was full of uneasiness, panic. She paced back and forth, not knowing what to do. At this moment, Lise Anna suddenly squeezed through the crowd and forcefully separated the crowd around Snow Nye. She scolded in a rather angry tone. "I'm talking about you. Don't scare her." Mira also stepped forward and arrived in front of Snow, revealing a gentle and sweet smile. "Welcome to Fairy Tale. Amira, can I just call you Xuan?" Snowy nodded subconsciously. Clearly, she hadn't recovered from the enthusiasm of the guild members. "What's wrong? Are you scared?" Mira looked at Snow worriedly. "I'm really sorry. Everyone was just too happy. It's been a long time since a new member joined our guild. Please don't mind." "Yeah," Lisanna said with a sigh. "Although it has only been a few months for us, for our companions in the guild, it has been 7 years since the last time we joined. For the past 7 years, only members have left the guild. There has never been a new member. That's why everyone is so happy. But I don't mind. Please don't worry." Snow shook her head and said softly after hesitating for a moment. "But is it really okay for me to join just like that?" "What's wrong?" asked Alusa, who had appeared out of nowhere. "Could it be that there's something wrong?" "No, there's nothing like that," Snow stammered. "It's just that before this, I've said some very rude things to everyone." "What? So you're referring to that kind of thing?" Naz said casually. "We've long forgotten about that kind of thing. Love." Habby flew in the air and raised his hand. "Because Naz is an idiot." "Well said, I agree with that." Gray folded his arms and nodded while glancing at Snow. "But you're really strong. I couldn't fight back against you in yesterday's battle. If there's a chance, I'll definitely find you for revenge." The meaning of revenge is not to make things difficult for Miss Xuan, but to compete with you. Wendy hurriedly explained. "So, please don't worry about being ostracized. We're all very good people. We'll definitely get along well with Miss Snow. If it's a competition, then fight it out with me when the time comes." Naz immediately shouted loudly. Then, he seemed to remember something and glared at Gray. "That naked pervert over there. You just scolded me, didn't you?" Huh? Gray glared back, unwilling to be outdone. When did I scold you? You still want to lie to me? Undoubtedly, you just scolded me. You called me a pervert. Naz, is there something wrong with your head? Undoubtedly, the person who scolded you is hubby. And you're the one who scolded me as a pervert. Gray, how could hubby scold me? He's a cat. Naz, what's so strange about a talking cat scolding people? And it's not the first time you've been scolded. Idiot. Gray, what did you say? Droop your eyes. Naz, I said you're an idiot. Hang your eyes. Gray, do you want to fight? Pervert. Naz, just what I want. Bring it on. Idiot. Gray. So, without any hesitation, Naz and Gray rolled into a ball and fought with each other. The surrounding tables were smashed into pieces and the debris flew everywhere. All of a sudden, the surrounding people were swept into it, and they started to panic. What are you doing? Go outside to fight. You two idiots. Everything was smashed by you. My wine. My meat. Miss Gray. Compensate me. Everyone was angry. One by one, they all joined in and wrestled with Naz and Gray. Suddenly, the entire bar of the hotel was in chaos. Tables, plates of food, and glasses of wine were all smashed and spilled all over the floor. At that moment, Elisha stood up and shouted righteously. Stop what you're doing. As soon as she said that, a plate of dishes flew directly over. Padesh. With a crisp sound, the plate smashed directly on Elisha's face, causing the sauce to splash on Elisha's face. The entire hotel suddenly became quiet. Everyone looked in Elisha's direction with a look of horror. Then, Elisha reached out and pulled the plate off her face. She opened her eyes with the sauce all over her face. Her delicate face was completely filled with rage. You idiots! With a roar, Elisha held 2 knight swords and charged over. Everyone cried out in alarm. Not long after, the cries of alarm turned into screams, causing the whole scene to become a mess. Era. Mira held one side of her face, her smile still gentle. It's like this again. Really, even Elisha joined in. Lise Anna complained. What about the compensation? Ah. Lucy laughed dryly. I can already imagine what kind of expression the president will have when he comes back. Wah. Wendy was at a loss. What should we do? Xia Lulu turned her head away. What a bunch of idiots. Looking at Naz, Gray, and Elisha's group who were in a mess, then looking at Mira and the others who were used to it, Xuanai raised a hand and clenched it in front of her, muttering in disbelief. Is this the fairy tale? Xuanai didn't notice. At this moment, a smile unconsciously appeared on her face. Noah, who had been observing Xuanai from the side, saw this scene and smiled without leaving a trace. Chapter 1692. In a room of the fairy tale hotel, Xuanai's clothes were completely removed, and her delicate body was completely exposed to the air. Oh, looking at Xuanai's naked body, Mira, Lise Anna, and Lucy all exclaimed in surprise. Because Xuanai's figure was quite good. Her skin was as white as a pearl and looked very soft and elastic. The curves of her body were bent in an extremely perfect and seductive way, which could be said to be the golden ratio. In addition to her full upper circumference, perky buttocks, and smooth and slender thighs, even to Mira, Lise Anna, and Lucy, who were also women, she was quite attractive. The girl in front of them was definitely a femme fatale. If a man saw this body, there was a 99% chance that he would lose his rationality, right? Under the gaze of Mira, Lise Anna, and Lucy, Xuanai's face was slightly red as she hugged her chest and said shyly, Please don't look at me like that. Sorry. Lucy put her palms together and said embarrassedly. It's just that Xuanai's figure is too good. Even we were stunned when we saw it. That's right. Lise Anna puffed up her cheeks in a fit of pique. Her figure looks even better than mine. How enviable. There's no such thing. Xuanai hurriedly denied. I think that Lady Lisana's figure is also very good. Is that really so? Lise Anna touched her lower abdomen. But I still want to be slimmer. Otherwise, After the great demon battle exhibition, I won't look good in the wedding dress. Wedding dress? Xuanai was slightly startled. Then, she thought of something important and came to a realization. I remember that Lady Mira and Lady Lisanna are already engaged to Lord Noah, right? That's right, Lucy said with a smile. Moreover, after the great demon battle exhibition, the three of them are planning to get married. Xuanai looked at Mira and Lisanna in surprise. Really? Is it really too sudden? Mira smiled embarrassedly. However, for Xuanai, our engagement with Noah was already 7 years ago. It's already too late to get married now. That's right, she said with a hint of longing in her eyes. I've always wanted to be Big Brother Noah's bride, and now I can finally fulfill my wish. Seeing the traces of happiness on the faces of Mira and Lisanna, Xuanai knew how much they liked Noah. Xuanai's heart was filled with envy. He was envious of two things. First, Mira and Lisanna had found their own happiness, and the other party was Noah. Secondly, Mila and Lisanna's feelings for Noah were very deep. After all, Noah was similarly the target of Xuanai's yearning. The so-called longing was very easy to appear together with love. So, logically speaking, it wouldn't be strange for Xuanai to feel jealous and resentful toward Mira and Lisanna. However, at this moment, Xuanai's heart didn't have any jealousy or resentment, only envy. She envied Mira and Lisanna for being able to accompany Noah for the rest of their lives. She envied the sisters for being able to openly express their love for Noah. Xuanai looked strong, but in reality, she was a weak and self-abased girl. Thus, in Xuanai's opinion, someone of low birth like her didn't have the right to be with Noah. To be able to stay in the same guild as Noah and see him every day, Xuanai was already very satisfied. What's more, Fairy Tale was an incredible guild. This was the first time in 7 years that Xuanai felt a sense of belonging and happiness. Although the time was very short, compared to a cruel and cold guild like Sabertooth, Xuanai unsurprisingly fell in love with Fairy Tale, a guild full of joy. Due to her low birth and low self-esteem, Xuanai was actually a very easy person to satisfy. To be able to join such a good guild and see the person she yearned for every day, Xuanai was very satisfied. Perhaps seeing the envy in Xuanai's heart, Mira held Xuanai's hand and said mischievously. Speaking of which, Xuanai seems to like Noah very much. Why don't you come with us and become Noah's bride? Lucy was taken aback. Clearly, she did not expect Mila to suddenly say such a thing. Become Lord Noah's bride? Xuanai was also shocked. Her pretty face flushed red as she resisted the temptation in her heart and shook her head vigorously. How can that be? A person like me isn't worthy of Lord Noah. You can't say that. Mira tapped Xuanai's cheek reproachfully. Xuanai is a very outstanding girl. She's so cute, and as a sorcerer, she's also very outstanding. There's no reason why she's not worthy of someone. That's right, Lisanna said in a mischievous manner. Moreover, even if you don't want to, Brother Noah might just eat you up. Eat? Lucy's face also flushed red. Clearly, she was starting to let her imagination run wild. There's no such thing. Xuanai shook her head repeatedly. Lord Noah isn't that kind of person. Unfortunately, Lisanna said to Xuanai's words with a hidden meaning. Indeed, Brother Noah is a very proper person. His usual behavior is almost full marks. Regardless of whether it's a girl or a child, he's very gentle. He's not the kind of person who would casually attack a girl. However, Brother Noah is also a very decisive person. If he thinks that it's necessary, he definitely won't shrink back at the last minute. Lisanna changed the topic and said angrily, Xuanai, if you took the initiative to seduce Brother Noah, he definitely wouldn't mind eating you up. Xuanai's face was completely red as she spoke in a mosquito-like voice. There's no such thing. What Lisanna said is probably true. Mira smiled helplessly. Perhaps, in places that we don't know, Noah has attacked other girls before. Not perhaps, Lisanna corrected. Of course there is. If Noah was there, he would definitely feel ashamed. That was because all those guesses had hit the nail on the head. Well, although Noah is a perfect person in all aspects, he's still a man after all. Lucy smiled awkwardly as she tried to smooth things over. Even if he's a bit of a playboy, it's nothing strange, right? You can't speak up for him like that, Lucy. Lisa pouted. You can't be a playboy. We'll get jealous too. Undoubtedly we'll get jealous, but we can't really get angry at him. Mira smiled. After all, if we really get angry at him for being a playboy, Lisa and I won't be able to obtain happiness together. Yeah, Lisa said in annoyance. It's really too easy for him. The few young ladies immediately looked at each other. Soon after, they all burst out laughing. All right, it's time to get down to business. Mira held a seal in her hand and came in front of the naked Xuanai. She squatted down, looked at her side abdomen, and gently stroked a coat of arms on it. That was the gilt coat of arms of Saber-Tooth. The reason why Xuanai was stripped naked was because of this coat of arms. Looking at this coat of arms, Mira raised her head, looked at Xuanai, and smiled slightly. Just cover this coat of arms, right? Yes. Xuanai nodded without any hesitation. Sorry to trouble you, Master Mira. Mira nodded with a smile, raised the seal in her hand, and stamped it on top of it. In the next moment, a pure white fairy coat of arms covered the previous saber-tooth coat of arms, and appeared on Xuanai's side abdomen. At this point, Xuanai officially became a member of Fairy Tale. Stroking the pure white coat of arms on her body, Xuanai smiled from the bottom of her heart. This will do. Mira stood up and held Xuanai's hand. Let's go, Noah is still waiting for you. Only then did Xuanai react, and nodded her head. Chapter 1693. At the same time, in the hall outside the room where Mira, Lisa, Xuanai, and Lucy were staying, Noah was sitting in front of a sofa with a box in his hand. Looking at the box in his hand, Noah smiled helplessly. I didn't expect that I would only remember their existence now. Fortunately, I didn't directly forget about it. Otherwise, it would be a bit of a waste. The things in the box had indeed been forgotten by Noah for quite some time. Looking at the time in the outside world, the things in the box had been left and used by Noah for more than 7 years. It was only today that Noah remembered it and asked Makarov to go back to Magnolia to find the box in his room and bring it here. With them, I think that Xuanai's strength should be a level higher, right? Noah intended to give the things in the box to Xuanai. Consider it as making up for the suffering that girl has suffered in the past 7 years. This was Noah's idea. After all, Noah had to bear part of the responsibility for Xuanai's unhappy 7 years. Moreover, Xuanai had already joined Fairy Tale and was already one of Noah's important companions. In addition, the person who led Xuanai into Fairy Tale was Noah, and even the person who made Xuanai a magic shooter and a star elf archmage was Noah. It was reasonable for Noah to give the things in the box to Xuanai. Just as Noah was thinking about this, a burst of sweet laughter and panicked voices came from the room, attracting Noah's attention. Then, Noah heard such a conversation. Wait, Lady Mira, Lady Lisa. Xuanai, what's wrong? Don't you have to hurry up and go out? Big brother Noah is still waiting for you. Lisa, but I'm like this now. Xuanai, it's okay, Xuanai is so cute, Noah will definitely like you. Mira, alright, hurry up and get out. Lucy, wait a minute. You know, when that panicked voice sounded, the door was opened and Xuanai was pushed out by several hands. When the panic-stricken Xuanai was pushed out, the door was immediately closed, leaving Xuanai alone in front of the door, not knowing what to do. Looking at Xuanai standing in front of the door, Noah's breath slightly stagnated. This was because right now, Xuanai was only wearing a thin shirt that was extremely transparent. One could even clearly see the skin underneath. Other than a thin shirt, Snow didn't seem to be wearing anything else, revealing a pair of smooth, white, and slender thighs. That seductive outfit was simply challenging the limits of a man's rationality. At the very least, Noah's mouth was slightly agape. He couldn't react in time. Lord Noah? Xuanai tried to push the door, but in the end, she couldn't enter. She could only resist Noah's gaze and protect her body with both hands. She spoke softly as if she was about to cry. Please. Please don't look at me like this. Hearing this, Noah finally reacted and quickly retracted his gaze. He secretly cried out in his heart. This must be Mira and Lasana's prank. Looking at Noah's awkward expression, Xuanai's pretty face was also slightly red. She didn't know how to react at all. Seeing this, Noah could only laugh bitterly. Alright, don't stand there. Come and sit down. Xuanai hesitated for a moment, then walked lightly to the front of Noah and sat down. Her hands were tightly pressed against the hem of her shirt in an attempt to cover some places that shouldn't be seen. However, Xuanai didn't notice that this way, her collar loosened instead. Noah, who inadvertently caught a glimpse of her alluring skin, smiled even more bitterly. However, he didn't remind her to avoid making the atmosphere even more awkward. Then, Noah looked at Xuanai and said, Actually, I have something to give to you. Something? Xuanai's attention was successfully diverted. Noah didn't say anything. He only placed the box in his hand on the table in front of them and opened it. In the next moment, the item in the box was revealed. Inside, there were actually 3 resplendent keys that were as bright as gold. Obviously, they were the star elemental keys of the 12 zodiac gates. This is... Xuanai looked at Noah in shock and spoke with uncertainty. For me. That's right. Noah nodded. The 3 keys are the Aries, Gemini, and Scorpio constellations of the 12 zodiac gates. Now, they belong to you. How? How can I? Xuanai hurriedly shook her head. The star elemental keys that belong to the 12 zodiac gates are very expensive magic tools. I can't accept it. Just accept it. Noah comforted the somewhat flustered Xuanai and smiled. No matter how expensive something is, it is only valuable when it is put to use. I'm not a star elemental mage. It's a waste to leave these 3 keys with me. Giving them to someone useful will show their value. In that case, they should be given to Lady Lucy. Xuanai lowered her head. I'm just a newcomer who just joined the guild. I can't accept such expensive things. I initially wanted to give them to Lucy, but unfortunately I forgot. Noah scratched his cheek. Moreover, Lucy already has 7 keys to the 12 zodiac gates. You only have 2 keys to the 12 zodiac gates. If I give them to you, they should be of more use. Lady Lucy already has 7 keys to the 12 zodiac gates. Xuanai was surprised and looked at the 3 golden keys on the table. Doesn't that mean that with the 3 keys here and the 2 keys in my hands, the 12 keys to the 12 zodiac gates are all gathered here? That's right. Noah said. So, don't decline and accept it. The star elemental keys of Aries, Gemini, and Scorpio were all plundered by Noah from Angel of the 6 demon generals, Oration Cease. Later, Angel did not get the key back from Noah. After Noah let her go, she left. Originally, Noah wanted to give these 3 keys to Lucy for her to use. Who would have thought that he would actually forget about it and leave the 3 keys behind until now? After understanding this, Xuanai was still somewhat hesitant. In desperation, Noah could only use his trump card. What? You don't like what I gave you? It's not like that. Xuanai stood up, more or less agitated. Definitely not like that. The overly agitated Xuanai did not notice. Because of the large movement, all kinds of terrible scenery started to be exposed from the thin shirt, causing Noah to be dumbfounded. He could only hurriedly speak. Then accept it properly. Who knows, you might need it tomorrow. Tomorrow? Xuanai was stunned. Yes, tomorrow. Noah nodded. Because the competition today was too intense, Gadjulu used up a lot of energy, so I want to let him rest for a day and let you fight as a substitute member of Team B. What? Xuanai was really surprised. But without giving Xuanai a chance to reject, Noah said directly. Now, in the guild, other than the participants of Team A and Team B, you are the strongest. Don't you want to represent the guild in the competition? But, Xuanai said as if she could not let go. I'm just a newbie. To us, there's no difference between new and old. Noah looked straight at Xuanai and said word by word. As long as it's a guild, then you are our comrade. We will fight for our comrades who have waited bitterly for us for 7 years, and win the victory of the Great Demon Battle Arts Exhibition. I also hope that you will contribute your strength for your comrades. This sentence pierced deeply into Xuanai's heart. For comrades? Xuanai muttered. For comrades. Noah nodded, picked up the 3 keys, and handed it to Xuanai. Xuanai looked at the 3 keys, and after a while, she took a deep breath, stretched out her hand, and held them tightly. Noah then smiled. Chapter 1694. Thus, the next day, Noah immediately announced to the members of Fairy Tale that Xuanai would take Gajilu's place today. As for Gajilu, he would stay in the hotel to rest. Regarding this, Gajilu was extremely unwilling, but in the end, he couldn't go against everyone's opinion. He could only lie on the bed with a sullen expression, refusing to make a sound, just like a child throwing a tantrum. Because of this, Elisha also made a last-minute decision to let Nez rest in the hotel and let Elfman appear as a substitute member of Team A. Naturally, Nez also resisted with all his might, making more noise than Gajilu, but in the end he was knocked down by Elisha with a single punch and became completely silent. Just like that, a group of Fairy Tale magic shooters arrived at the dome, and just like yesterday, they were divided into the contestant group and the spectator group, entering the venue from 2 different paths. Perhaps it was because enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road, but today, Noah's group also met a certain degree of archenemy. Sabertooth's group, who had just entered the passageway for the contestants, immediately stopped in their tracks when they saw Fairy Tale's group. Their expressions turned solemn. This was especially so for Sting, Logue, Lucius, and Olyaga. When they saw Noah walking at the head of the group, not only did their faces darken, there was even a hint of fear in their eyes. Under such circumstances, Noah noticed another person. A girl who was leading Sting, Logue, Lucius, and Olyaga's group. She was obviously the leader of the group, and was dressed in a somewhat flamboyant manner. Seeing this girl, Xuanai cried out in surprise. Miss Xuanai? Meniba turned her gaze and cast it on Xuanai, and a smile that reminded people of a poisonous snake appeared on her face. I didn't expect that after not seeing you for a few days, you would actually betray us. Xuanai, this choice of yours is not very wise. No. The surprise on Xuanai's face slowly disappeared and was replaced by her usual unswerving determination. I think this is the best choice I have made in my life. Meniba obviously didn't expect Xuanai to refute her like this. She was a little surprised and sneered. You've changed a little, although these changes are a little stupid. Xuanai ignored Meniba's mockery and looked straight at her. Today, I will be a substitute member of Fairy Tale B. If I have the chance to go on stage, I won't lose. Mississippi. Hearing this, Meniba's face sank. That was to be expected. Until yesterday, Xuanai was still a member of Sabertooth. After losing to Noah in yesterday's match, she joined Fairy Tale today and entered the competition as a member of Fairy Tale. If that happened, what would others think? Others would definitely think so. Looks like that contestant called UNI thinks that with the strength of Sabertooth, there's no way to beat Fairy Tale. That's why she joined Fairy Tale, right? Although people with discerning eyes would definitely be able to see some clues, but people are creatures that subconsciously believe what they see as reality, so there will definitely be many people who think so. If that was the case, then the reputation of Sabertooth would be completely ruined. So that's how it is. Meniba turned to look at Noah and said sarcastically, as expected of Fairy Tale, what a good move. Meniba thought that Noah deliberately let Xuanai go on stage to create this situation. Noah didn't want to explain. He just met Meniba's gaze and smiled. Your guild leader of Sabertooth originally planned to expel Xuanai from the guild. Since that is the case, who do you think should be blamed for this situation? Father is indeed too impulsive and arrogant. Meniba shrugged and smiled. But this is how our strongest guild does things. Hearing Meniba's words, Noah raised his eyebrows, took a step forward, leaned in front of Meniba, and said softly, So, your so-called title as the strongest guild won't last long. Meniba's flirtatious smile suddenly froze. After leaving the sentence, Noah glanced at Sting, Roger, Lucifer, and Olyaga. Under the four people's fearful gazes, he lightly said to his companions, "Okay, let's go in." With that, Noah led the crowd into the venue. Meniba's eyes flickered as she stared at Noah's receding figure. Looking at Meniba, Sting asked tentatively, "Young miss?" "I'm fine." Meniba took a deep breath and said seriously, "Is he Noah Dole?" she asked. "It is indeed quite difficult to deal with." "This man is too powerful," Lucifer said in a low voice. "If we don't have a way to deal with him, I think it will be very difficult for us to win." "Don't worry. I have as many ways to deal with a man as I want." Meniba smiled coldly. After all, an individual with great strength can become the best soldier and the best general. However, if one wants to become the best king, strength alone is not enough. "I'll show him." Meniba licked her lips, her eyes shining with a vicious light. "It's a battle style that belongs to kings." But the loud cheers seemed to never stop. With the enthusiasm of the audience, they constantly reverberated in the air above the venue. Today, the dome, flattened bird was still full. The audience was everywhere, and it was very lively. Taking a closer look, there were actually people in the audience who started to raise the banner of Fairy Tale, cheering for Fairy Tale. Under such circumstances, on the platform, Chapati raised the microphone and expanded his voice to the entire venue. "Ladies and gentlemen, now it is finally the third day of our great Demon Battle Arts competition. Today, what kind of wonderful performances will the 8 participating teams bring us? Even I, Chapati Laura, am looking forward to it." Along with Chapati's voice, a projection magic crystal unfolded in the air above the venue, reflecting the current rankings of the 8 participating teams. Among them, Team A and Team B, which belonged to Fairy Tale, firmly occupied the first place. The audience holding the flag of Fairy Tale and cheering for Fairy Tale collectively cheered. As we can see, currently, the 2 teams of Fairy Tale occupy the first and second place respectively. However, the difference in points between them and the other teams is not very big. It is entirely possible that they will be overtaken. After today, what kind of changes will occur in the rankings of the major guilds? Let's wait and see. Then, let's begin the third day of the Great Demon Battle Arts Competition Demon Subduing Hall. Chapati began to announce. "Every team, please send a contestant to participate in the competition of Demon Subduing Hall." Noah looked at the projection magic crystal in the center of the venue and fell into deep thought. "What? You don't know who to send?" Laxus asked. "If it's necessary, it's not a problem to send me." Mira, Snow, and Julian all looked at Noah. Under the gazes of his companions, Noah raised his head and spoke calmly. "Let me go." Chapter 1695. Mira, Yukino, Jubien, and Laxus all looked at Noah in surprise. Noah nodded under everyone's gaze. "In yesterday's competition, our Team A and B didn't get many points. Although we barely managed to stay at the top of the leaderboard because of the duels, it's just like what the report said. The gap between us and the other teams isn't that big. We could be overtaken at any time. So, I'll be the one in today's competition." Hearing this, Mira, Jubien, and Laxus fell into deep thought. "That," Yukino said guiltily. "I'm really sorry. It's all my fault." Obviously, Yukino was concerned about Noah's words. After all, on the first day of the competition, Yukino was the one who defeated both teams. At that time, you weren't a member of our guild. Naturally, you had to do your best to get points for your guild. So, don't feel guilty about it. Noah patted Yukino's shoulder and walked past everyone into the competition venue. "Then I'll be right back." "Be careful," Mira reminded him. "Don't do anything rash." Noah raised a hand, indicating that they didn't need to worry. Then he walked into the venue. At the same time, the other teams also decided on their candidates. "Good. Every team has decided on their contestants," Chapati reported loudly. "Let's see what kind of contestants the 8 teams sent out. Raventail has sent out contestant Obra. Sabertooth sent out contestant Olyaga. Mermaid Heel has sent out contestant Miliana. Blue Pegasus has sent out a loud contestant. Lamia Scale sent out contestant Kara. Cotter Cerberus sent out contestant Nobali. Fairy Tale A has sent out contestant Alusha. Finally, the player that Fairy Tale B sent out is actually player Noah. Chapati couldn't help but raise his voice. Could it be that we're lucky enough to see that kind of terrifying power that's beyond the scope of human beings today? The audience suddenly burst into cheers. Clearly, the power that Noah had displayed yesterday was still vivid in the minds of those who had witnessed it with their own eyes. That kind of power that did not seem to belong to humans, would he be lucky enough to witness it again today? Everyone was looking forward to it, but they were also uneasy. At the same time, they felt extremely excited. Thus, flags with the emblem of Fairy Tale were continuously raised in the audience seats. There were even couplets painted with eye-catching paint. And the words marked on the horizontal couplet were a name: Noah Dole. Seeing this scene, Noah didn't know what kind of expression to make. He could only helplessly smile. Elusha, who had unknowingly appeared beside Noah, also smiled and said, "It seems that after yesterday, many people have become your fans." "I can see that." Noah shrugged. "I hope that this popularity will bring a lot of commissions and business to our guild in the future." Elusha couldn't help but laugh. The 8 contestants immediately gathered in the middle of the venue. Then, Jula took a step forward and looked at Noah with an unyielding smile on his rock-like face. "I can fight with you again. I hope that in the arena, I can at least take back some ground from you." It was clear that yesterday, Noah had easily defeated Jula with less than 1% of his power. Jula's speech didn't suffer a blow to this Saint Magus. It was better to say that after understanding the gap between him and Noah, Jula was like a young man who didn't want to admit defeat. "I won't lose either." Miriana raised her hand and giggled. "Whether it's little Elu or little Noah, don't think that you can easily beat me." Noah and Elusha both smiled and nodded. Apart from Jula and Miriana, the others weren't so optimistic. Olyaga, in particular, still looked at Noah with a trace of fear in his eyes. Then, let the demon subduing hall competition begin. At this time, the pumpkin referee jumped out of nowhere and raised his hands high. "Let's welcome our venue demon subduing hall." As soon as his voice fell, clang! In the sky above the venue, a purplish-black radiance suddenly flickered without any warning, illuminating the entire dome of the Fra bird. Everyone present raised their heads and looked at the sky. There, a huge purple-black magic array suddenly rotated and covered the sky above the venue. Immediately after, along with a wave of mana, a gigantic darkness shrine slowly emerged from the purplish-black magic array. It descended from the sky and landed heavily in the direction of the venue below. Boom! After a loud sound, the huge temple of darkness fell on the ground of the venue, setting off a gust of wind and dust. The ground shook slightly, shocking many people. Everyone looked at the huge temple of darkness in amazement. Under such circumstances, the pumpkins started giggling. "What you see now is our demon subduing hall, which is also your next arena." Saying such a sentence, the pumpkin's tone became dangerous. Of course, that's not an ordinary arena. Just like its name, Demon Subduing Hall, there are a total of 100 monsters in this temple of darkness. There are 100 monsters in there? All the contestants were shocked. Even Noah couldn't help but raise his head and look at the demon subduing hall in front of him, frowning slightly. He didn't expect the kingdom to capture monsters and bring them to the venue as part of a competition. If the captured monsters went berserk and rushed out of the demon subduing hall, it would be no laughing matter. Could it be that the kingdom was so reckless because there were so many high mages from the guilds here? There was also a slight commotion in the surrounding audience, faintly feeling uneasy. Well, everyone, don't worry. Those aren't real monsters, they're just substitutes that we've materialized using magic. The pumpkin seemed to want to reassure everyone, waving her hand. So, the monsters definitely won't rush out of the demon subduing hall to hurt people, please don't worry. Hearing this, the surrounding audience breathed a sigh of relief in unison. However, the group of magic shooters exclaimed in amazement because of this. For the sake of a competition, the kingdom had actually gone to such great lengths to materialize 100 monsters using magic. It wouldn't be a big deal if they were just ordinary monsters. However, if they were placed in front of the elite magic shooters of so many outstanding guilds, those monsters definitely wouldn't be low-leveled, right? If Shi Feng summoned 100 of these monsters, just how many magic crystals would he have to burn to cover the cost of his mana consumption? For the sake of a competition, the kingdom was actually willing to spend so much. How rich and overbearing. Thinking about it carefully, for the first day of the competition, the organizers had similarly used a town as a venue. The mana consumption was similarly frightening. In the end, with such a consumption, how much mana would the cost of a single great demon battle exhibition be? The organizers were truly rich and overbearing. The group of magic shooters sighed emotionally. Only Noah narrowed his eyes slightly. In Noah's opinion, no matter what, the kingdom couldn't possibly burn such a large sum of money every year for the sake of an entertainment festival. Unless, of course, the kingdom had other motives. Or perhaps, the mana that was consumed was actually the mana that was unknowingly absorbed from the archmages during the previous great demon combat exercises. In other words, the mana absorption that Noah had felt before was very likely the kingdom's doing. The kingdom? Noah raised his head and looked in the direction of the palace. I hope you won't do anything to make me unhappy. Noah didn't notice. While he was looking in the direction of the palace, a shadow quietly appeared in a corner of the venue. Chapter 1696. Just as Noah was looking thoughtfully at the palace's location, the explanation of the competition's content began. We've divided the 100 monsters into 5 grades, S, A, B, C, and D. According to the grades, the number and strength of the monsters are also different. Pumpkin raised a finger. Among them, there are 50 D-class monsters, 30 C-class monsters, 15 B-class monsters, 4 A-class monsters, and only 1 S-class monster, which is the highest level, Feng Luo said. All the contestants need to do is draw lots. Then, according to the order of the lots drawn, everyone will enter the demon subduing hall. Pumpkin raised a second finger. However, before entering the demon subduing hall, the contestants need to confirm how many monsters they want to challenge. Once they've confirmed, the demon subduing hall will have the same number of monsters as the contestant's choice, but the monsters' grades will be random. After that, the contestants can enter the demon subduing hall and challenge the monsters. No matter what the monster's grade is, each monster defeated will be counted as 1 point. Only after defeating all the monsters of their choice will they be able to exit the demon subduing hall. At this point, Pumpkin raised a third finger. There's one thing to note, and that is, if a contestant is defeated in the process of challenging the demon subduing hall, then in this round of challenges, no matter how many monsters they defeat, their points will return to 0. Unless they've successfully obtained points when they entered the demon subduing hall, they can only be eliminated with 0 points. Finally, according to everyone's points, we'll come up with a ranking. Pumpkin seemed to kindly remind them. By the way, although there's only 1 S-grade monster, according to the strength we've set, that monster has a strength that even the 10 great saint magicians may not be able to defeat. This sentence caused everyone's eyebrows to rise. At the same time, they had a deeper admiration for the palace's wealth. If even a monster comparable to the 10 great saint magicians was conjured, then the magic power required would undoubtedly be several levels higher. There's more. Don't think that the lowest grade D monster is weak. Pumpkin snickered mischievously. According to our settings, even if it's AD rank monster, it still has the strength to single-handedly defeat the elite magic shooters of your guild. As for C rank monsters, it will be doubled. As for B rank monsters, it will be doubled. Just like that until S rank. If you aren't careful and die in the demon subduing hall, our guild won't be responsible. Pumpkin, the 8 magic shooters looked at each other, and many of them even had a solemn expression on their faces. Unlike yesterday and the day before, today's competition already had life-threatening factors. Moreover, the rules were quite complicated. Players would take turns to enter Demon's Smiting Hall based on the order of the lots drawn. Before entering, players would also have to choose the number of monsters they needed to challenge, allowing the corresponding monsters to appear in Demon Smiting Hall. However, the monsters' levels were random. In addition, if one was knocked down during the challenge process, they would be eliminated. The challenge points of that round would also be reset to 0. Unless one had already entered the Demon Smiting Hall and successfully knocked down the number of monsters they had chosen to obtain points, otherwise, their points would be 0. In other words, if they were unlucky and encountered an S-rank monster in the first round and were defeated, then they would definitely be in 8th place. Unless the 8 contestants are defeated, they will take turns to enter Demon Smiting Hall until all 100 monsters in Demon Smiting Hall are defeated, or all 8 contestants are defeated and eliminated. Only then will it be considered over. Pumpkin suddenly pulled out a box. Then, let's start drawing lots now. Hearing that, the 8 contestants looked at each other, but none of them chose to step forward. Obviously, no one wanted to be the first to stand out. Seeing that everyone else was watching, Noah sighed and stepped forward. Since that's the case, then let me go first. Everyone's gaze immediately gathered on Noah. In front of everyone, Noah walked in front of Pumpkin. Looking at the box, he couldn't help but mutter in his heart. Now, I don't have any ability points anymore, and I've also lost the skill that increases luck. I wonder how my luck is now. Muttering this, Noah reached into the box and pulled out a lot. In the next moment, the corners of Noah's mouth lifted slightly. Looks like my luck isn't bad. On Noah's lot, there was a 1 written on it. Hey. Contestant Noah is the first challenger. Pumpkin hugged the box and walked in the direction of the other contestants. Next contestant, please draw lots. However, as soon as those words left his mouth, Noah suddenly spoke. No need to draw. Pumpkin's footsteps stopped. No need to draw? The others were stunned on the spot. Noah tossed aside the lot in his hand, raised his foot, and walked in the direction of Demon Subduing Hall as he spoke indifferently. Didn't I say that the competition would be over after all 100 monsters in the Demon Subduing Hall were defeated? Then there's no need to draw lots, right? At first, everyone had a confused expression. However, after a while, everyone immediately understood the meaning of Noah's words and opened their eyes wide. Before the challenge, I have to choose the number of monsters to challenge first, right? Noah didn't stop walking, but his voice echoed clearly in everyone's ears. In that case, all 100 monsters belong to me. After saying that, Noah walked into the dark divine hall called the Demon Subduing Hall under everyone's shocked gazes. About a minute later, kaboom! Amidst a deafening roar, the huge divine palace of darkness suddenly exploded, setting off an extremely terrifying burst of wind and flames. Mixed with debris, it swept across the entire venue. The audience could only stare blankly as the Demon Subduing Hall, which was as fragile as paper, exploded piece by piece. It turned into fragments and scattered all over the ground. Then, it disappeared under the blast of wind and flames without leaving a trace. The hat on their heads and the snacks in their hands were blown away by the blast of wind and waves. They didn't even have time to react. When everyone finally reacted, Noah's figure slowly appeared in the scorching blast of flames. He floated down from midair and landed on the ground. Noah raised his head and looked at the audience in a daze. He shrugged and said, "Don't worry, I won't be able to win." "What? Do you still want to continue?" The entire venue suddenly fell silent. In the next second, the cheers that resounded throughout the venue burst out like a huge wave. "Do you still want to continue?" Of course, there's no need to continue. Even Chapati was ignited as he announced loudly with great excitement. Noah Doria won first place in the Demon Subduing Hall competition. Without a doubt, he's first place. The audience stood up one by one and couldn't stop cheering. They shouted until their veins were bulging, but they still didn't have any self-awareness. The cheers reverberated and shook the air in the entire venue. As for the other 7 contestants, they looked at each other in dismay and smiled bitterly at each other. Really? Elisha looked at Noah, who was standing in the center of the venue, and her eyes became extremely gentle. "I can't compare to that guy at all." Noah seemed to feel Elisha's gaze. He turned his head and waved his hand. Seeing this, Elush's eyes became even gentler. The magic shooters from the other guilds also couldn't help but smile bitterly in the audience and contestant area. They also offered the highest level of applause to Noah. At this moment, there were only two people who were sincerely unhappy with Noah's performance. One was in the contestant area of Sabretooth. There, Magneba's face was gloomy, and even her eyes were full of hostility. The other was in the contestant area of Raventail. Alexei stared at Noah, who was bathed in the cheers of the audience. He clenched his fists and squeezed out an extremely resentful voice from under his mask. "Damn it! Why is that guy so strong?" At this moment, a black shadow appeared behind Alexei. "Who is it?" Alexei turned his head abruptly and looked behind him. Then, Alexei heard such an incomparably evil voice. "I'm the one who gave you hope." Chapter 1697. In the end, because of Noah's activity, the third day of the Great Demonic Battle Arts Exhibition turned into a one-man show. However, the points of the competition mainly came from the rankings. Even if Noah took on 100 monsters and won first place in the competition, the rest of the contestants still needed to determine who was better. However, even the kingdom could not continue to create 100 monsters in a short period of time for the contestants to challenge. Therefore, without any other choice, the organizers could only temporarily decide to use a small test to determine the rankings of the remaining 7 teams. The content of the test was based on the magic of each team's sorcerer. The team with higher magic would be able to obtain a higher ranking. In the end, Noah won first place without any controversy. In the competition, the rankings of each team and the points they obtained, in order of highest to lowest, were as follows: Frownyface Fairy Tale B Team, 10p. Lamia Scale, 8p. Fairy Tale A Team, 6p. Sabretooth, 4p. Mermaid Heel, 3p. Cotter Cerberus, 2p. Blue Pegasus, 1p. Raventail, 0p. After that, there were 4 more duels. The first duel, Mermaid Heel's Miriana versus Cotter Cerberus's Symes. Miriana won and obtained 10 points for Mermaid Heel. The second match was between Sabretooth's Lucifer and Blue Pegasus Ibu. Lucifer was victorious and earned 10 points for Sabretooth. The third duel, Laxus from Fairy Tale B Team versus Raventail's Aliax. Laxus won and obtained 10 points for Fairy Tale B Team. The fourth match was between Wendy from Fairy Tale A and Shalia from Lamia Scales. The two sides were tied, and each of them won 5 points for their respective teams. After 1 duel and 4 duels, each team's ranking had a small change. The changes were as follows. First place, Fairy Tale B Team, 44p. Second place, Fairy Tale A Team, 37p. Third place, Sabretooth, 34p. Fourth place, Mermaid Heel, 30p. Fifth place, Lamia Scale, 25p. Sixth place, Raventail, 24p. Seventh place, Blue Pegasus, 16p. Eighth place, Cotter Cerberus, 12p. At this point, the third day of the Great Demon Battle Exhibition had smoothly ended. Fairy Tale's 2 teams had successfully maintained their position as the top 2 teams. Especially Team B, there was a 10-point gap between them and the third-place team, Sabretooth. If Sabretooth wanted to chase after him, he would have to put in a lot of effort. No matter what, today was still Fairy Tale's victory. A group of Fairy Tale sorcerers were chatting and laughing as they walked out of the giant egg. They walked towards the direction of the hotel. At the back of the group, Noah lowered his head and fell into deep thought. His eyebrows were tightly knitted. Mira, who was keenly aware of Noah's abnormality, hugged Noah's arm and gently said, "What are you thinking about?" Hearing this, Noah did not hide anything and directly said it. "I'm thinking about the Raventail." With this, his companions who were chatting and laughing around him also quieted down. It wasn't strange for everyone to have such a reaction. The reason was actually very simple. It was because Raventail did something that puzzled everyone. Laxus narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Are you thinking about why those guys directly forfeited in the competition?" This was the reason why Noah fell into deep thought. Today, Raventail's performance was too abnormal. Whether it was in the competition or the duel, Raventail's contestants directly forfeited and did not get any points. As a result, Raventail naturally fell from 3rd place to 6th place. This behavior was too abnormal. Originally, Noah did not care about Raventail at all. During the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition, he let them do whatever they wanted. Because in Noah's opinion, Ivan's tricks were too childish and ridiculous. Once Ivan made a move, Noah only had to take care of him, and this guild with bad intentions would be doomed eternally. But today, Raventail actually forfeited twice without hesitation, which made Noah a little suspicious. "I have a feeling," Noah said in a low voice. "Ivan might be planning to make a move." The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. His companions all gathered around Noah, and even their footsteps stopped. "Could it be just your imagination?" Gray said. "It's just forfeiting. Maybe those guys feel that they have no chance of winning?" "Winning isn't important to those guys at all." Noah shook his head. "Those fellows' true target is us, or rather, our guild. To them, the Great Demon Martial Arts Exhibition is just a stage for them to achieve their goal. They've been targeting us since the beginning, so the results of the competition don't matter at all." "Then, in your opinion, those guys forfeited twice on this stage. What are they planning to do?" Elisha asked. "Could it be that they want to make a move outside the competition?" "That's very likely." Noah nodded and looked around. "In short, I feel that something is wrong. Everyone be careful, no matter what, do not act alone." "Understood." Everyone nodded in unison. Seeing Noah being surrounded by his companions and giving orders to his companions, and the companions around him carrying out Noah's orders from the bottom of their hearts, Xuanai felt a strange feeling in her heart. This feeling was completely different from when she was in Saber-Tooth. In that place, the relationship between the guild leader and the members was only that of a superior and subordinate, and even the relationship between the ruler and the ruled, there was not the slightest bit of affection to speak of. In that kind of guild, Xuanai could only feel the cold order and prestige. But here, Xuanai could feel waves of warmth. Because here, the guild leader's every order was for the safety of the guild members. And the guild members' obedience was also due to their trust in the guild leader. Thus, Xuanai once again realized, being able to join a guild like Fairy Tail was simply too good. Chapter 1698. The sky gradually darkened. After returning to the hotel, the group of people from Fairy Tail feasted and drank like they had done for the past 2 days. Then, those who had left halfway returned to their own residences. Before the start of the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition, the organizers had allocated the participating teams of each guild to the various inns in Coloccus. The inns allocated to the participating teams were of different sizes according to the guild. For example, Saber-Tooth, because they were the previous first place, the inns allocated to them were of a larger scale and could accommodate all the members of the guild. This allowed all the sorcerers of Saber-Tooth to stay together. Unlike Saber-Tooth, Fairy Tail had always been the last in the previous competitions. Therefore, the place allocated to Fairy Tail was only one of the rooms in the inn. Of course, not only did the sorcerers of Fairy Tail not stay in the same inn as the contestants, but even Team A and Team B stayed in different inns. Therefore, after the members left the banquet, they could only go their separate ways and return to their respective residences. However, under Noah's instructions, everyone was prepared to leave in groups and ensure their safety. Thus, Mira, Xue, and Lise Anna left the banquet together. On the way, Lise Anna said apologetically to Mira and Xue, "I'm sorry, Sister Mira, Xue, I had to ask you to send me off." Originally, Makarov had already rented an inn for the members of Fairy Tail who did not participate in the competition to stay together. However, those fellows were either still causing trouble at the banquet or had already left. The timing of Lisanna's departure was completely different. At first, Lisanna had planned to wait for them to enjoy themselves before returning together. However, after knowing that Lisanna was planning to leave, Mira and Xue volunteered to send Lisanna back to the inn. "Well, I didn't plan to stay for too long anyway." Mira smiled indifferently. "Besides, I'm worried about you. This is just a coincidence." Lord Noah said that the guild called Raventail will most likely attack us outside the arena. Snow added, "That's why it's safer for us to move together." "But our hotel isn't in the same direction," Lise Anna said helplessly. "Otherwise, we wouldn't have to go through so much trouble." The banquet was held at the bar on the first floor of the hotel where Fairy Tale B was assigned to. In light of this, after Mira and Snow sent Lise Anna back to her residence, they still had to return to their own hotel. This meant that Mira and Snow were purposely taking a detour. It was because of this that Lise Anna apologized. "Just like what Xuanai said, it's safer to move together," Mira said gently. "If something were to happen to you, not only me, but Noah would also be very worried. It would be best if we could avoid an accident with just a little trouble. Moreover, I wouldn't find it troublesome at all." Snow lowered her head and said embarrassedly, "I've never tried using my own power to protect my companions. Now that I'm doing this, I'm actually a little happy." Hearing that, Mira and Lise Anna exchanged glances and smiled in unison. "Then I'll have to trouble you, Xuanai." Lise Anna held Xuanai's hand. "Xuanai is so powerful, she's really reliable. I feel very safe with Xuanai." Mira held Xuanai's other hand. "If the three of us are together, with Raventail as our opponent, there shouldn't be a problem." Noah said that in terms of strength, even in Fairy Tale, which was famous for its strict requirements for S-rank sorcerers, Xuanai had the qualifications to become an S-rank sorcerer and was qualified to be in the top 10 of the guild. As for Mira, she was an active S-rank sorcerer and was second only to Noah, Kilda's, Lax's, and Alusha in the guild. She could be ranked in the top 5 of the guild. With Mira and Xuanai's escort, Lisana's safety would be guaranteed. After all, in Raventail, even the guild leader, Ivan, didn't have the ability to hurt Mira and Xuanai working together. Moreover, Lisana's strength wasn't weak and wasn't far from the frontline combat members of the guild. This way, with the Raventail's ability, it was not enough to hurt the three of them. Of course, the prerequisite was that the opponent only had a Raventail. With Mira and Lise Anna holding each of her hands, Xuanai, who was more or less in fear and trepidation, inadvertently caught a glimpse of the scene in front of her. The expression on her pretty face slightly froze and she abruptly stopped and raised her voice. "Lord Mira, Lord Lise Anna." Mira and Lise Anna were slightly startled by Xuanai's sudden stop and immediately felt that something was wrong. They abruptly turned their heads and looked forward. In the next moment, the three girls saw it at the same time. They didn't know when, but on the huge street, there wasn't a single person. Moreover, even the surrounding street lights suddenly dimmed and lost their light. Under such circumstances, a black fog like a whirlpool kept spinning in front of them, emitting waves of evil aura. The evil aura made Mira, who had the power of the demon in her body, feel a burst of vigilance. She couldn't help but stand in front of Lise Anna and stare forward while speaking in a deep voice. The black fog that was spinning like a whirlpool suddenly stopped. In the next moment, the black fog suddenly exploded and turned into a black wave that surged out. Mira, Lise Anna, and Xuanai were all shocked. They only had time to do this before the thick black fog surged in front of the three girls. At this critical moment, the only one who reacted was Mira. "Danger!" Mira quickly reached out and pushed Xuanai and Lise Anna away at the same time. The surging black fog was like a rolling wave, covering Mira and swallowing her. Xuanai and Lise Anna, who were pushed away by Mira, fell to the ground. Looking at Mira, who was swallowed by the black fog, they both exclaimed in shock. "Sister Mira? Lord Mira?" Almost at the same time, a small black shadow scurried from behind the two girls and directly rushed toward Lise Anna. Along with a soft trembling sound, Lise Anna, who was about to get up and rush into the black fog to save Mira, suddenly felt a tremor all over her body. Then, the mana in her body actually disappeared in a moment, leaving not a trace. Immediately, Lise Anna lost all her strength. Lise Anna only felt her vision suddenly spin before her body swayed and she fell unconscious. "Lord Lise Anna." Xuanai panicked and hurriedly hugged the fallen Lise Anna. Looking at the unconscious girl, she gritted her teeth and glared at the black fog in front of her. Who is it?" In the rolling black fog in front of her, A sinister laughter rang out. Then, the words entered Xuanai's ears. "What? Don't you recognize me?" As soon as the voice fell, a figure slowly walked out of the thick black fog and entered Xuanai's vision. The newcomer had long hair that was half black and half gray, and it was tied up and hung behind his back. It was the sinister man who had appeared in Yu Feitsue's room in the palace. The sinister man looked at Xuanai and the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. "Long time no see, Xuanai." Looking at the man full of evil aura, Xuanai first stared at him. In the next second, her eyes suddenly widened as she muttered in disbelief. "Could you be?" The sinister man revealed a sinister smile. Chapter 1699. On the other side, in the fairy tale hotel, many of his companions were still there. They continued to eat and drink as much as they could while making a ruckus. Some of the residents living in the neighboring hotels started to complain. Noah was at the bar with Makarov, discussing with Makarov about some of today's discoveries, such as the fact that the person behind the scenes absorbing the mana of the high mages participating in the Great Magic Wars was most likely the kingdom, as well as the abnormal behavior of Raventail and so on. Makarov seemed to be attaching great importance to these two matters, but he didn't manage to find out anything. In front of Noah, he put on a distressed expression. Looking at the distressed Makarov, Noah could only helplessly help. After all, Makarov kept saying that he was going to retire, but when it came to matters related to the guild, he wouldn't give up without getting to the bottom of it. Noah originally intended to solve these two matters himself, but because he couldn't resist Makarov's questioning, he could only use the excuse of discussing the matter with this worrisome old president. And obviously, even Noah had just found some clues, so Makarov didn't know what to do. Thus, Makarov could only be distressed, making Noah laugh. At this time, Noah suddenly felt a familiar mana fluctuation. Feeling that familiar mana fluctuation, Noah's expression slightly froze, and he suddenly stood up. Noah's action instantly attracted the attention of everyone present. Seeing Noah suddenly stand up with an unsightly expression, Makarov immediately asked, "What's wrong?" "I felt Myra's mana." Noah directly walked out of the bar, leaving this sentence behind as he quickly walked out. "Mira is fighting now, she might have encountered an attack." While leaving this sentence, Noah also walked out of the inn. His figure directly soared into the sky, turning into a stream of light, and shot in the direction of the familiar mana fluctuation he sensed. It was only then that the group of magic shooters from Fairy Tale came to their senses. They were all shocked, and rushed out of the inn in unison. They rushed in the direction that Noah was flying at as fast as they could. Whoosh! In the starry night sky, a stream of light was like a meteor streaking across the sky, shooting straight in the direction of Crocus. His dark and deep eyes were like those of an owl, flashing with a somewhat cold expression while constantly scanning the surroundings. Following the familiar mana fluctuation that he sensed, Noah quickly arrived above a dark street. Then Noah saw it. On the street below, a black swamp-like fog was violently spinning like a vortex, repeatedly releasing an evil aura. In the constantly spinning black fog, Mira, who had received Satan's soul, was agitated with surging mana. She had a slightly uncomfortable expression on her face, as if she had fallen into a swamp and was struggling with difficulty. Beside her, Lise Anna seemed to have fainted and was lying there. Seeing this, Noah more or less guessed the situation. There was no doubt that Mira and her party had been attacked. Moreover, the attacker's strength was very high, binding Mira and making it difficult for her to move. As for Lise Anna, although he didn't know what had happened to her, there wasn't any change in her aura. It seemed that she had just fainted. These speculations appeared in Noah's mind in an instant. After a moment, Noah's eyes turned sharp, and he suddenly stretched out a hand, aiming at the thick black fog below. Clang! A blue magic array spun out in front of Noah's palm, like a turret, and aimed downward, gathering mana. Hum! In the next moment, the blue magic array trembled, and the mana gathered in it turned into a beam of light that shot out toward the pitch-black fog below. Bang! The dazzling beam of mana collided with the black swamp-like fog, causing a muffled explosion. Then, as if canceling each other out, They both exploded, turning into white and black spots, dissipating into the air. It was only then that Mira seemed to have been released. Her body became light, and after staggering a few steps, she turned her head, looked in Lasana's direction, and rushed over. A dazzling light bloomed from Myra's body, allowing her to release herself from receiving Satan's soul and rush to Lasana's side. At this moment, Noah had already descended from the sky. He picked up Lisa, checked her condition, and breathed a sigh of relief. Lisa. Mira hugged her as well, looking at Noah anxiously. How's Lisa? Don't worry, she's fine. Noah grabbed Myra's hand and looked into her eyes, indicating for her to calm down. She's just fainted because she's exhausted too much mana. She'll wake up when she recovers some mana. Is that so? Mira was relieved, and she breathed a huge sigh of relief. That's great. What's going on? Noah asked Mira as he hugged Lisa. And where's Xuanai? We were ambushed. Mira bit her lip lightly. Xuanai seems to have been taken away. Noah's expression darkened. So they were ambushed? The ambusher shouldn't be Raventail, right? Noah asked calmly. At the very least, I don't think Raventail has the ability to bind you and take Xuanai away. I don't know who the ambusher is either. I was trapped by the black mist as soon as we were ambushed, and I don't know what's going on outside. I can only vaguely hear Xuanai calling out Lasana's name, and she seems to be talking to someone. Mira said unwillingly. Then, she seemed to have thought of something. She raised her eyes and looked at Noah. But the ambusher left me a message. If you want to find Xuanai, you have to go to the outskirts of Crocus alone. You can't bring anyone with you. In other words, the ambusher's target wasn't Mira, Lisa, or Xuanai, but Noah. Mira clearly understood that, and her eyes were filled with worry as she looked at Noah. However, Mira didn't say anything and remained silent. She held Noah's hand tighter and tighter. Feeling the strength of Myra's hand, Noah immediately held it back and smiled at Mira. Don't worry, even Aconaraglia can't do anything to me. How can an ambusher who only knows how to sneak around do anything to me? In a single sentence, Noah's plan was completely revealed. Mira didn't say anything and only held Noah's hand tightly, revealing her usual gentle and sweet smile. Yes, I believe you. Noah nodded and placed Lisa in Myra's arms. Then he hugged Mira as well. Grandpa and Alusha should be on their way here now. They'll be here soon, Noah instructed. Tell them not to act rashly for the time being. Leave everything here to me. If I'm not back by tomorrow, let Kana replace me with a substitute member. Xuanai didn't fight today, and the substitute member of Squad B hasn't been confirmed yet, so there shouldn't be a problem. I know. Just leave the Great Demon Battle exhibition to us. You've already won a lot of advantages for us. We'll definitely win, Mira said softly as she snuggled in Noah's arms. Remember to bring Xuanai back. Noah kissed Myra's forehead and then Lasana's forehead before getting up. Under Myra's gaze, he turned into a streak of light and shot into the sky, flying out of the city. Looking at Noah's gradually disappearing figure, Mira hugged Lisa tightly and murmured softly, "Come back soon." Chapter 1700. The night gradually deepened. Some cold wind slowly blew across the land, causing the flowers and trees on the outskirts of Carlacas to sway, giving off a very tranquil feeling. In the sky, dark clouds began to appear, covering the moonlight. For a moment, darkness swallowed the entire land, causing the light to become extremely dim. At a certain moment in Carlacas, where there was still sufficient light, a stream of light flew out, streaking across the night sky at an extremely fast speed, and landed on the outskirts. Noah slowly stepped forward and looked around. Whoosh! The cold wind seemed to have not noticed that the atmosphere had begun to become tense, and continued to blow across the land in the outskirts, causing Noah's robe to flutter. Noah slightly closed his eyes against the cold wind, then suddenly opened them, looked in one direction, and said straightforwardly, "Stop fooling around. Enough with your mystifying tricks. It's time to come out, right?" The whole place was silent. The silence seemed to be mocking Noah's words, silently telling him that there was no one here. It continued to spread in the air. Noah just quietly looked in that direction without saying anything and without doing anything, as if he was not anxious at all, maintaining his silence. Maintaining this strange state, it was not until 5 minutes later that a clear sound of speechlessness was heard. Immediately, in the direction Noah was looking, several figures began to slowly appear and walked towards him. Looking at the group of people slowly approaching, Noah's eyes narrowed slightly. There were a total of 5 people. The leader of the group was a man clad in resplendent golden armor. Surprisingly, it was the raven-tail, Alexei. Behind Alexei, 4 people stood in a row, as if Alexei was their leader. They followed Alexei and walked over. The 4 people's appearances were very distinct. One of them was a short, fat man who looked very annoying. One of them was a young girl with eye-catching long red hair that was tied into 2 braids. She was dressed in a red dress. The other was a clown dressed like a magician, but on his back stood a dark brown little person. The last one was a man with black eyeshadow and black lipstick, with a face like a snake, giving off a gloomy feeling. The 4 people were all members of the Raven-tail. Including Alexei, the 5 people were the Raven-tail participants in the Great Demon Combat Arts competition. Noah more or less remembered the information about these people. The short fatty was called Narabutinku, and the magic he used was called Needle Explosion, which was a kind of magic that could make the arm full of needles and strengthen it, and its destructive power was comparable to that of an explosion. On the first day of the Great Demon Combat Arts competition, he was the one who appeared with Gray and Julian. The girl with crimson hair was called Freya, and the spell she used was called Crimson Hair. It was a spell that allowed her to freely manipulate her hair, making it longer or shorter at will. She could even make her hair as hot as fire to attack. She was Lucy's opponent on the first day of the Great Demonic Combat Tournament. The clown dressed like a magician was called Obra, and the magic he used was ominous, which had not been shown so far. He appeared in today's competition, but after Noah finished challenging the demon-subduing Hall, he directly forfeited, which was very mysterious. The man who looked as gloomy as a snake was called Black Snake, and the magic he used was called mimicry, which was a kind of magic that could change himself into other forms and manipulate them. Black Snake's mimicry target was sand, so he could freely turn into sand and manipulate the sand he transformed into. As for Alexei, his specific strength was unknown, his specific magic was unknown, and even his specific appearance and specific background were unknown. Today, he was chosen to duel with Laxus, but just like Obra, he directly forfeited. To others, Alexei was very mysterious, even more mysterious than Obra. However, to Noah, Alexei's so-called mystery was just a joke. At this point, are you still going to hide? Noah glanced at Alexei and said with a smile, "Ivan Doria." Alexei's footsteps suddenly froze and he stopped. However, Noah could imagine. Alexei's face under the mask at this time was very ugly. Under such circumstances, Noah said as if he was talking to himself, "If you want to hide, then at least use some decent means, such as directly using transformation magic to change into other people's appearance, and then use a magic tool to hide your own aura, to eliminate your own aura, that is called perfect. Wearing a set of broken armor and a broken mask, you can also hide your identity and participate in the Great Demonic Arts competition? Does the kingdom really intend to not let people violate the rules?" The Great Demonic Arts competition that determined the guild ranking every year. It was a ceremony that every guild in the Fiori Kingdom could participate in. However, if you want to participate in this ceremony, you have to at least abide by 2 basic rules. 1. You must have the guild's coat of arms, and can only appear as a sorcerer of the guild. 2. The participant can't be the guild leader. Not abiding by the above 2 points is a violation of the rules. Alexei had blatantly violated the second rule. As early as during the preliminaries, Noah had already discovered this guy's true identity and underhanded means. Ivan had already attacked Noah and exposed his aura under Noah's sensing ability. When he appeared again, even if he covered his face and did not hide his aura, how could he hide from Noah? Therefore, Noah thought that the so-called Raven-tail was just a group of clowns. Seeing that his true identity was exposed as soon as he appeared, Alexei. No, it should be Ivan. After a moment of silence, he reached out his hand and took off the mask on his face. He stared at Noah with a gloomy expression and smiled coldly. No wonder you dare to say that humans can't be compared to you. You are indeed difficult to deal with. Whether I am difficult to deal with or not, until now you only know. Noah curled his lips. If that's the case, then I have really overestimated you. After that, Noah did not give Ivan any chance to reply and went straight to the point. You took the initiative to give up on the great magic battles today for this, right? Let the guy who instigated you come out. Ivan's expression stiffened when he heard this, but he still put on an act and said, "What instigated me? I don't understand what you are talking about." As soon as Ivan finished his sentence, he immediately noticed that Noah was looking at him with a disdainful gaze. Are you trying to say that you were able to successfully attack Mira, Snow, and Lysana all because of the strength of your raven tail ? Noah said sarcastically. If that's the case, then I will honestly admit that I have underestimated your strength. The group of Raventail's magic shooters immediately showed anger on their faces. Noah's words were obviously looking down on them. Don't be too proud, little brat. Little brat. Ivan couldn't help but get angry and roared at Noah. Don't forget. We are in charge now. The person you want is in my hands. Then tell me where Snow is. Noah looked coldly at Ivan. I don't have much time to play games with you. Play games? Ivan's eyes widened slightly as he flew into a rage. You actually said that the plan that I have been plotting for so long is a game. Plotting? Noah looked away and said in a tone that made Ivan extremely angry. Forget it, I can't be bothered to waste time on you. As soon as he finished speaking, Noah suddenly shot out without any warning and appeared in front of Ivan at an astonishing speed. Wah! Ivan's expression changed drastically. However, before Ivan could react, Noah suddenly reached out and grabbed him by the neck, lifting him up and hanging him in the air. The group of Raventail's magic shooters were all shocked. In the next moment, a terrifying burst of mana rose from Noah's body. Chapter 1701. Boom! The terrifying mana that surged from Noah's body directly turned into a substantial shockwave that violently vibrated and sent the Raventail magic shooters that surrounded Ivan flying. The Raventail magic shooters that were sent flying did not even have time to scream before they crashed heavily onto the ground. The screams that reached their mouths turned into muffled groans as they fell to the ground and wailed incessantly. Purely by releasing his mana, Noah did not make a move at all, and the Raventail magic shooters had all fallen around him. Ivan, whose neck was being choked by Noah, had a change of expression on his face. But soon after, he was attacked by a sense of suffocation and let out an inaudible wail. Noah stared coldly at Ivan, who was struggling with all his might as his face gradually turned purple. He tightened his grip on Ivan's neck bit by bit, causing Ivan's feet that were lifted off the ground to thrash about wildly. However, Noah still tightened his grip on Ivan's neck bit by bit, causing Ivan's struggle to become weaker and weaker. Finally, his hands drooped down, and his eyes began to roll back. He looked like he was about to breathe in and out. It was only then that Noah released his grip on Ivan's neck and let Ivan fall to the ground with gravity. Cough, cough, cough. Ivan immediately covered his neck and coughed uncontrollably, as though he had just drowned and was gasping for air. Ivan looked up, panting wretchedly as he stared at Noah in disbelief, and opened his mouth in disbelief. How dare you do this to me? No matter what, Ivan had a hostage in his hands. It was because of this hostage that Ivan dared to bring his men and appear in front of Noah in an upright manner. Of course, it was not right to say that he was upright. In the beginning, Ivan was still hiding in the dark and looking for an opportunity to sneak an attack on Noah. He planned to take down Noah first to increase his chances of success. However, because he was discovered by Noah, Ivan's plan could only be declared a failure. However, Ivan was not afraid because he had a hostage in his hands. After he was discovered, he came out directly. Originally, in Ivan's imagination, Noah should now be humble and even kneel down to beg for mercy. Then he would raise the condition for Noah to exchange Lumen Starlight for Shuena. Ivan never thought that this script would go wrong from the beginning. Noah actually attacked Raventail without any scruples when Ivan had a hostage in his hands. Was he not afraid that something would happen to the hostage? Looking at the look of disbelief on Ivan's face, Noah seemed to have seen through his puzzlement and sneered. That's right, I do want to find Xuanai, but not to the extent of being threatened by you. Anyway, I've already confirmed that there is at least one mastermind behind you. Moreover, you don't seem to be in cahoots, but are just using each other. In that case, I'll just talk to that guy directly. I don't need to get any clues from you. Do you understand what I mean? Noah bent down and looked at Ivan condescendingly as he said sarcastically. In other words, you're completely useless. You're just being used as a pawn to die, idiot. After saying that, Noah raised a hand directly at Ivan. A magical circle suddenly spun out from Noah's palm and aimed at Ivan, who was paralyzed on the ground, gathering mana within. Wait. Ivan screamed in horror. You can't kill me! You can't kill me! Ignoring Ivan's screams, Noah's eyes didn't carry any emotions at all. The magical circle aimed at Ivan continued to gather mana, causing the magical circle to gradually emit a bright light. At this moment, an unprecedented shadow of death began to spread in Ivan's heart. Thus, Ivan understood. Noah really intended to kill him. I've told you before, haven't I? Noah looked straight at Ivan, his eyes revealing a cold emotion. If I have the chance, I'll definitely kill you. The magical circle aimed at Ivan became brighter and brighter. Sensing the impending death, Ivan roared with his eyes bulging out of their sockets. Abra! Quick! Eliminate his mana! Suddenly, the dark brown figure on the body of Abra, who had fallen to the ground, violently shot out like a bullet towards Noah's direction. At the same time, the clown who was dressed like a magician collapsed and turned into a pile of clothes. That Abra was actually just a dummy. Squeak squeak. The dark brown figure let out an animal-like cry with a treacherous smile on his face. He suddenly pounced on Noah and grabbed his shoulder tightly. Clang. In the next second, a magical circle lit up on the body of the dark brown figure. No one knew that Abra had the ability to eliminate the mana of any individual or even any target. If the target of this elimination magic was an individual, then all the mana in their body would be wiped clean in an instant. Therefore, Abra's magic had always been Ivan's trump card. Unfortunately, Ivan chose the wrong target to use it on. Accompanied by a trembling sound, a terrifying amount of mana was constantly released from Noah's body. Under the effect of Abra's elimination magic, it was being consumed at a terrifying speed. However, Noah did not resist at all under such a terrifying consumption. He glanced at the little dark brown figure on his shoulder, and his eyes were full of mockery. It was as if he did not care about the terrifying consumption of mana at all, and his expression remained calm from the beginning to the end. The treacherous smile on the figure's face froze. Ivan's expression became interesting all of a sudden. In the next instant, a hand suddenly reached out and grabbed the small dark brown figure, squeezing it tightly in the palm of his hand. I see. You're the real Abra. That clown is just an illusion. Noah stared at the shocked figure in his hand with a cold glint in his eyes. The magic that can eliminate mana. You're the one who did it to her, aren't you? There was finally a hint of anger in Noah's tone, and a surge of magic power surged in his hand that was holding the little dark brown figure. Bam! With a muffled sound, Noah fiercely clenched his fist, and the palm that was filled with surging magic power immediately crushed the dark brown dwarf. Blood splashed out and sprinkled on Ivan's face. Ah! Ivan let out a heart-wrenching scream. He wasn't grieving because of Abra's death. Instead, it was because Abra's death caused the shadow of death in his heart to explode. Then, the mana that gathered in the magic array in front of Noah's hand suddenly turned into a flash of light that instantly covered Ivan's entire body, causing him to be gradually annihilated in the beam of mana amidst his heart-wrenching screams. His body was smashed into pieces, leaving no trace behind. After the beam of mana that shot out from the magic array destroyed Ivan, it still streaked across the space without slowing down and landed on the terrified Nerapudinku and the Black Serpent, annihilating the two rather outstanding magic shooters into nothingness. In the end, the beam of mana that shot out rubbed against the air and shot into the distance, disappearing at the other end of the horizon. Ivan, Nerapudinku, the Black Serpent, and Aubra were all dead. Only Freya was left. She sat there with a dull expression, as if she had lost her mind. She didn't react for a long time. Ignoring Freya's reaction, Noah retracted all the magic in his body, turned around, and looked in another direction. "All right, you've seen enough of the show. It's time to come out, right?" As soon as he said this, a round of applause rang out. To be able to kill the person holding the hostage without batting an eyelid. Should I say, as expected of an existence that dares to claim that humans can't be compared to? A thick black fog suddenly rose and turned into a devilish man that appeared in front of Noah. Chapter 1702. Whoosh! No one knew when it started, but the cold wind started to blow again, blowing across the land in the suburbs. Noah and the evil man looked at each other. One's eyes were full of judgment, the other's eyes were full of evil. Both of them were silent, and no one spoke at the first moment. Not long after, Noah spoke indifferently. "Who are you?" The evil man shrugged and said so. "You can call me Luo." "Luo?" Noah frowned. For some reason, Noah felt that this guy who called himself Luo seemed to be strange. No, not strange, but his existence itself seemed to have some kind of inconsistency, as if there was a feeling of gears that couldn't be bitten, which made people feel very uncomfortable. Under such circumstances, Noah even had an illusion. He seemed to know the other party, but also seemed to not know the other party. It was an indescribable illusion. Feeling that clear illusion, Noah's frown deepened. Noah, who couldn't get rid of this illusion, simply asked directly, "Where is Xuanai?" Hearing this, the evil man who called himself Luo suddenly smiled. "Don't worry, Xuanai is very safe now. I've arranged for her to be in a place where no one can touch her. As long as you agree to my request, I'll immediately tell you her whereabouts." "Request?" Noah narrowed his eyes and curled his lips. "Fine. Let me hear what you're planning to ask for by attacking my companions." Hearing Noah's sarcastic words, Luo smiled helplessly. "You don't need to be angry, and you don't need to be hostile to me. My request is actually very simple for you. I just feel that if I don't have any bargaining chips, you wouldn't agree, so I let Xuanai come with me. I'm very sincere." Luo said as if he was implying something. "Look, I only took Xuanai away and didn't do anything to your two fiancés, right? Let me make it clear, the one who attacked the girl named Lise Anna was not me, but the guy from Raventail." Law glanced at Freya, an evil and vicious smile appearing on his face. "If you are not comfortable with this, I can help you get rid of the rest of the trash." Freya's face was instantly filled with fear. She maintained her paralyzed posture on the ground as she shuffled her body backward, shaking her head continuously. Don't kill me, don't kill me." Obviously, the girl named Freya was scared out of her wits. "Okay, just tell us what you're here for." Noah stared at Law. "What is your purpose?" "My purpose is actually very simple." Law met Noah's gaze, and although the evil smile on his face did not change, the look in his eyes changed. "Noah Dole, you can no longer participate in the next Great Demonic Combat Arts competition. As long as you agree to my condition, I will take you to see Xuanai immediately. Don't participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition?" Noah was stunned. "Don't participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition." Law stared at Noah tightly and said this half-jokingly. "Didn't you claim to be an existence that humans cannot be compared to? Then what is the point of competing with a group of weak humans? Can't you just leave the rest of your companions in the guild to do the rest of the things? Or do you have no confidence in your companions?" Before, although Law's voice was full of evil charm, Noah did not feel much emotion from it. However, at this moment, Law's words carried some emotion, which surprised Noah a little. At this moment, Noah rolled his eyes and asked, "Why do you go through so much trouble to get me to withdraw from the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition? Could it be that you think I'm a threat to the victory of any team?" Law snorted. The outcome of the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition has been decided at the beginning, as long as you don't participate. Law's firm tone made Noah puzzled. The outcome of the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition has been decided at the beginning? What does this mean? Also, as long as Noah doesn't participate, the result will not change? Why is Law so sure? For a moment, thousands of thoughts flashed through Noah's mind. However, even though there were many doubts, there was one thing that could be confirmed. That is, if Noah continues to participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition, it will definitely cause some kind of obstacle to the guy in front of him who calls himself Law. Because of this, Law did not hesitate to kidnap Xuanai and use this to make Noah compromise. However, it can be seen that Law is very afraid of Noah. Whether it was the power or the existence itself, Noah made Law feel a very strong fear and even vigilance. Therefore, Law also did not dare to completely provoke Noah. He just took Xuanai away and did not do anything to Mira and Lisanna. If Law had done something to Mira and Lisanna, at this time, Noah may have already gone berserk and blasted him to pieces, right? It is because of this that Law did not completely offend Noah. As for the Raventail, it is purely a prop used by Law to test Noah's reaction. Law wants to see how Noah will treat the Raventail when Obra of the Raventail eliminates all of Lisanna's magic and causes her to faint. If Noah chooses to compromise with the Raventail, then Law will not talk to Noah so nicely as he is now, and he will definitely use Xuanai to threaten Noah. Unfortunately, Noah had annihilated all the members of Raventail except for Freya, especially Obra, who had eliminated Lisanna's magic power. He had crushed her to death without leaving any room for negotiation. In this way, Law does not dare to easily anger Noah, because that is not good for Noah and Law. Thinking of this, Noah asked abruptly, "What's in it for you if I don't participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition?" Law was silent for a moment. Noah was not in a hurry, he just looked straight at Law, quietly waiting for his reaction. After a while, Law grinned and looked up at Noah. "Well, if you really want to know everything, I can tell you everything, including the purpose of the existence of the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition." Hearing this sentence, Noah's eyes suddenly flashed. "So that's how it is," Noah said very calmly. "It seems that you know what is going on with the phenomenon of magic being absorbed from the sorcerers one by one during the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition. Have you noticed?" Law said indifferently. "It's just that it doesn't matter now. By this year's Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition, the magic needed for the Eclipse Plan has been gathered." "Eclipse Plan?" Noah asked. "What's that? Do you want to know?" Law raised his eyebrows and after a while, said to Noah, "If you want to know, then agree to my request. In that case, after the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition is over, I will tell you everything." Hearing this, Noah understood. Lua would not reveal anything else. "Let me remind you first, don't use the Raventail method on me," Law said as if he was on guard against something. "If you intend to take me directly and ask me about the whereabouts of Xuanai and all the information about the Eclipse Plan, then I won't tell you even if I kill myself." Law's expression became extremely cold. It was not coldness toward Noah, nor was it coldness toward anyone else. It was coldness toward oneself. Then Law said this sentence, "Don't think I can't do it. The Eclipse Plan is everything for me now. If it fails, then I might as well die. So, believe me, I can definitely do it." This time, it was Noah's turn to be silent. After a long time, Noah lifted his feet and walked in the direction of Law. Law's whole body tensed up. However, Noah did not do anything to Law, but directly past him, back to back with Law, and spoke lightly. "Well, let me see what you are going to do." Law's eyes lit up, and the evil smile returned to his face. Chapter 1703. After that, Law immediately took Noah and went to the location of Xuanai. Under the leadership of Law, Noah came to the venue of the Great Demonic War, Dome Flatten. With Noah, Law walked into the venue and found a secret path. After a while, they came to a huge cave. Noah, who came to the cave with Law, immediately saw it. In this cave, there are countless huge corpses lying. This is... Noah looked around with surprise and astonishment in his eyes. Dragon's corpse? Yes. Law nodded. The corpses here are all the corpses of dragons, the corpses of dragons that have been around for hundreds of years. Hearing this, Noah turned his eyes directly to Law. Law naturally understood what Noah meant. Noah was asking Law to explain why there were so many dragon corpses here. 400 years ago, the world was still dominated by dragons. Human beings were very weak compared to the powerful dragons. Law began to explain as he walked forward. However, not all dragons and the dragons who dominate the world regard human beings as insignificant ants. Some dragons are attracted by the rich feelings of human beings and hope to live with them. So, the dragons have been divided into two factions. One faction wants to coexist with human beings, and the other faction advocates keeping human beings as livestock or food. They quarreled with each other and eventually launched a war between dragons. Law's voice became a little empty. The war between the dragons is extremely terrifying. Just one of them has the power to easily destroy a city. When all of them gather together to fight, the damage caused is simply unimaginable. The war between the two factions has been in a stalemate for a long time, and there has been no clear winner, so the war has been going on for a long time. Under such circumstances, sooner or later, the world will be destroyed in the hands of the dragons. In order to end the war and defeat the opposition, the dragons of the coexistence faction made a decision. Law glanced at Noah. That is, to teach the magic that can destroy dragons to human beings and let human beings participate in the war. Noah suddenly turned his gaze and looked at Law with a surprised look in his dark and deep eyes. It seems that you have guessed what magic it is. Law grinned. The magic that can destroy dragons. Yes, that's the magic of the Dragon Slayer. That's how the Dragon Slayer magic appeared. The power of the Dragon Slayer magic, presumably, as a person in the same guild as the 4 Dragon Slayer magic, you should be very clear about it. Law's eyes twinkled slightly. Not to mention Wendy Mabel of the Sky Dragon, Naz of the Fire Dragon, and Gadulalet Fox of the Iron Dragon have begun to gradually show their power. In this year's Great Magic Battle Arts competition, the so-called elites of the Magic Guide Guild, who can match those two people, can be counted on one hand, not to mention Lax's Dole of the Thunder Dragon, your brother. I'm afraid his strength is close to that of Jula of the Rock Iron, right? Noah nodded non-committally, but in his heart, he agreed with Law's words. The Dragon Slayer magic is indeed quite powerful. At least, from the perspective of the field of magic, there are very few magic that can be compared to it, except for super magic. After learning this kind of magic, not to mention Naz, Gadjalu, and Lax's, even Wendy, who is only 14 years old, already has a certain degree of power, much stronger than the average mage. It is conceivable that the power of the Dragon Slayer magic is indeed much stronger than ordinary magic. If you think about it carefully, you can actually understand. There are so many guilds in the Fiori Kingdom, and Fairy Tail and Sabertooth were both known as the strongest guilds in the Fiori Kingdom for a period of time, above the rest of the guilds in the kingdom. Such two guilds must have gathered a lot of elites, and there must be a lot of excellent mages. However, even so, in the two guilds, the position of the Dragon Slayer Archmage had always been high. He either occupied the position of a frontline combat member or was simply the strongest Archmage in the guild. This was enough to explain everything. However, human beings are very greedy creatures. Although the dragons of the coexistence faction found that human beings have rich emotions and were attracted by this, they did not find that it is precisely because of the existence of rich emotions that there is darkness in the hearts of human beings that the dragons cannot match. Law seemed to be ridiculing the stupidity of the dragons of the coexistence faction, and as if he was showing contempt for human beings, he spoke sarcastically. So, the desire of human beings who got power from the dragons also began to expand. When the victory of the coexistence faction was in sight, even those dragons who wanted to coexist with human beings were killed. At this point, Law's tone became dignified. And among that group, a man used the Dragon Slayer magic to eliminate a large number of dragons, and finally, he grew scales and fangs, and gradually became a dragon. A human turned into a dragon? Noah stood up in surprise. In this regard, Law gave a positive answer. That's right. That person turned into a dragon. You can treat it as a side effect of the dragon slayer magic, or as a mutation caused by slaughtering a large number of dragons. No one knows what the real situation is. I only know that the sleeping dragons here all died at the hands of that man. Noah's brows wrinkled tightly. Staring straight at Law's back, Noah was silent for a while, and then asked word by word. That man, who is he? Law stopped in his tracks. In the next second, Law slowly turned around and looked at Noah, his evil eyes filled with an indescribable light. That man, because he slaughtered all the dragons, in the end, even he himself became a dragon with dark wings. Undoubtedly, he was a human, but he became the Dragon King. The war that gave birth to the Dragon King was called the Dragon King Ceremony. Law's voice sounded very clear. And the name of the Dragon King is Aconarolia. When the familiar name came into Noah's ears, although Noah had some guesses in his heart, he still couldn't help but be speechless. However, if you think about it, it seems so natural. If it wasn't for the ability to slaughter all the dragons in the entire dragon clan, how could Aconarolia have a 4-digit level of power? If it wasn't to this extent, with Noah's strength, how could he not even be able to take down a dragon? Aconarolia, the black dragon who destroyed a huge country in Revelation. His real body is not only the Dragon King who obliterated the dragon clan that dominated the world, but also a human who became a dragon. I heard that 7 years ago, Aconarolia descended on your guild's holy land, Celestial Wolf Island, and almost annihilated all of you. You survived because of the protection of magic that can even freeze time. Law suddenly smiled. In that case, you should know the power of the Dragon King named Aconarolia. With that said, Law turned around and continued to lead the way for Noah. Although Law didn't say it directly, Noah still heard a meaning from his words. Didn't you claim to be an existence that humans can't compare to? But if the opponent is Aconarolia, there's nothing you can do, right? That was what Law wanted to say. Of course, Law didn't know. In the battle on Celestial Wolf Island 7 years ago, although Noah was protected and frozen by Mavis' super magic, Aconarolia also suffered a heavy blow. If Law knew about this, he wouldn't be so calm now, right? However, it is undeniable that Law did bring very important information to Noah. If he didn't know this information, in the future, if he faced Aconarolia, Noah would definitely suffer a big loss. Just when Noah was so glad, Law suddenly spoke. Well, we're here. Noah raised his head almost subconsciously and looked forward. Chapter 1704. In the depths of the cave full of dragon corpses, in a dark corner, Xuanai was leaning against the rock wall with her head down and her eyes closed. She seemed to have lost consciousness. Looking at Xuanai like that, Noah's heart tightened slightly. He quickened his pace, passed Law, and came to Xuanai. He squatted down and checked Xuanai's breath. Don't worry, Xuanai just fainted. I didn't use any violent means on her. Law spread out his hands. Can you rest assured now? It seems that Law was very afraid of Noah, so he avoided angering Noah in all aspects, lest Noah get angry and really destroy him regardless of anything. From this point, it can also be seen that Law admitted that he was not Noah's opponent. However, that's not surprising. Not to mention Luo, I believe that no matter who it is, as long as they saw the amazing scene of Noah using the power of the heavenly sword of salvation in the great demon battle arts arena that day, they would not think that they could be a match for Noah. A divine sword that can even cut a star. In the face of this legendary level power, it's estimated that only a stupid guy like Jermaine can speak arrogantly. Noah could naturally see Law's fear of him, but he didn't completely believe the words of this evil guy. After checking Xuanai's physical condition and finding nothing unusual, he raised his head and looked at Law. Under Noah's gaze, Law also felt a little difficult to breathe. After all, now, Noah has found Xuanai, and it's hard to guarantee that he won't do something to him. You don't want to break the promise you made, do you? Law's smile became a little forced. That's not what a strong person would do. Done by a powerhouse? Noah curled his lips. I don't think I have that kind of cultivation, but you should be glad that you really didn't do anything to the people around me. After that, Noah stopped looking at Law and took out the gift card. Plink. The dark gold gift card flashed, and a bottle of water appeared in Noah's hand. Opening the bottle cap, Noah fed the water into Snow's mouth bit by bit. Seeing this, Luo Kai confirmed that Noah really didn't intend to do anything to him. He unconsciously breathed a sigh of relief and said to Noah, "From the looks of it, you seem to have brought enough food and water, so I don't have to specially prepare them." Prepare food and water? Noah's hand movement paused and his eyes turned back to Law. In other words, you plan to let me and Xuanai continue to stay here? Hearing this, Law did not answer directly, but said this in a roundabout way. Although I don't think you'll go back on your word, in order to avoid any accidents, there's nothing wrong with you and Xuanai staying here before the Great Demon Combat Arts Exhibition competition ends, right? This sentence, Law obviously said very insincerely. If he really believed that Noah would not break his promise, then Law would not let Noah stay in such a place. Don't you want to know the content of the solar eclipse plan? Law said as if he wanted to make the last insurance. As long as you stay here until the end of the Great Demon Combat Arts Exhibition competition, then, when the Great Demon Combat Arts Exhibition competition is over, I will tell you everything. After that, Law's body was covered by a black shadow, turned into a black mist, and disappeared in place. Watching Law disappear in front of his eyes, Noah's eyes showed some thoughtfulness, and after a long time, he curled his lips. Let's see what tricks you're going to play. In this way, the sky gradually brightened up. In the fairy tale hotel, everyone gathered here, not as loud as before, but whispered and discussed, and the atmosphere was very dignified. After a while, Elisha glanced out of the window, looked at the sky getting brighter, and sighed. It seems that Noah and Xuanai won't be able to come back in time. Elisha's words made the fairy tale group more or less silent. Makarov, sitting at the bar, crossed his arms, closed his eyes, and no one knew what he was thinking. After a long time, Makarov opened his eyes and said, "Don't worry. Kana, in today's game, you will replace Noah and play with Team B." Everyone's eyes converged on Makarov's body. "I have no problem." Kana rarely did not hold the bottle and frowned slightly. "But Noah, don't you need to take care of him?" "Yes." Nazi stepped forward, clenched his fist, and shouted at Makarov. "At least let me help Noah. You'll just be a burden if you go." Gray said this indifferently. "If there's something that even Noah can't solve, even if we go, it'll probably be useless, right?" Hearing this, everyone looked a little helpless. It had to be said that Gray's words were very correct. If there's something that even Noah can't solve, even if the entire fairy tale group went with him, they still wouldn't be able to solve it, right? Only Elisha clearly saw that although Gray said this, his hands were clenched into fists. Obviously, although he said this, if it was really necessary, Gray would definitely be like Nazi and go to Noah's side without hesitation. "How is brother Noah now?" Wendy hugged Xia Lulu worriedly. "I'm so worried." "Don't worry." Mi stretched out her hand and pressed on Wendy's shoulder, the smile on her face still unchanged. "If it's Noah, he'll be fine." "That's right." Lucy also comforted her. "Noah is so strong. Not to mention humans, even dragons are different. If they can beat him, they'll be fine." Although this statement is very unpleasant, I also agree. Gadjaloo said intentionally or unintentionally. Undoubtedly, that guy is a human, but he's as strong as a monster. Even Aconarolia can't do anything to him. What else do we have to worry about? Ditto. Laxus closed his eyes and spoke in a seemingly leisurely manner. "Instead of worrying about Noah, it's better to worry about our game today. Didn't Lord Noah entrust the game to us before he left?" Julian whispered. "Julian thinks that Lord Noah is telling us that even without him, we will never lose." Everyone looked at each other and laughed in unison. "Julian is right," Makarov said. "Noah entrusted the game to us. Since that's the case, we can't lose. Otherwise, we'll be betraying Noah's trust. Also, although we won't lose without Noah, we can't do without Noah," Makarov said. So, those who need to participate in the game, focus on the game. As for the rest, some of you stay to take care of Lisanna, and some of you go out to see if there are any clues to Noah and Shuanai's whereabouts. Remember, work as a team. No one can be left alone. Makarov's gaze swept across everyone present. That guy, Ivan, may still be watching us in secret, you know? Everyone nodded their heads and agreed. If that's the case. Naz raised his fist and his whole body burned with flames. I won't lose today's game. Not only today, we must obtain victory in the Great Devil Battle exhibition. Gray's mouth split into a grin. No matter who it is, bring it on. All of a sudden, everyone's fighting spirit was ignited. All right. Makarov jumped down from the bar and declared loudly. Let's get moving. Yes. Everyone's voices rang out in unison. Everyone followed Makarov's instructions. Some stayed to take care of the unconscious Lisanna, while others went out to look for Noah. The contestants, on the other hand, headed towards the arena. Nobody noticed that a young, fairy-like girl was floating on the ceiling of the inn. She looked at the group of people in the guild and smiled. Then she turned into a phantom and disappeared. Chapter 1705. Ladies and gentlemen, it's finally the 4th day of our Great Demon Combat Arts competition. At this time, the Great Demon Combat Arts competition has entered the countdown. After all, the competition only lasts for 5 days, but I believe that the contestants will continue to give us exciting performances. On the rostrum of the Great Demon Combat Arts competition, Chapati was still reporting enthusiastically as usual, trying his best to stir up the atmosphere of the audience. However, although the audience's enthusiasm did not diminish, the contestants from the various large guilds were all looking in the direction of Fairy Tale B's contestant area, whispering to each other with puzzled expressions on their faces. In particular, in the contestant area of Saber-Tooth, Sting, Rog, Lucifer, Olyaga, and Miniba were all looking in the direction of Fairy Tale B's contestant area and looking at each other. Then Lucifer spoke. There's no doubt that Noah Doria is not here. He probably won't be appearing today. The reason why the magic shooters of the major guilds had been paying attention to the situation of Fairy Tale B's contestant area was because they realized that Noah was not there. It was probably the first time that such a commotion was caused because of a contestant's absence, right? However, it was understandable that it would turn out this way. Who asked Noah's performance to be so amazing in the past 3 days? Of course, Noah's movements had long become the focus of attention of the major guilds and even the great magic shooters. Now that they realized that Noah was not there, these people were naturally very puzzled and even started to discuss it. Why isn't he appearing? Rog, who was usually silent, could not help but speak. Could it be that something happened? Rog, your question is a little stupid, Sting said a little disinterestedly. With that guy's strength, how could something happen to him? Unlike before, now, Sting and the others had truly experienced Noah's strength. Moreover, it was an unfathomable strength. So, to be honest, Sting did not think that anything had happened to Noah. Obviously, the others were thinking the same thing. In other words, the reason why that guy didn't appear was either because he was held back by something, or because he felt that there was no need to continue? Olyaga smacked his lips. I hope he's held back by something. Otherwise, it would be too unpleasant. Miniba didn't say anything as she listened to the conversation between Sting and the others. She only looked in the direction of Fairy Tale B, and an unfriendly smile gradually surfaced on her heavily made-up face. Forget it. No matter what the reason is, it's good that he didn't appear. Since that man took the initiative to give up the competition, then in this year's Great Demon Combat Arts exhibition, our Saber-Tooth position will not be shaken. Hearing this, other than the cold Rog, Sting, Lucius, and Olyaga also laughed. For Saber-Tooth, this year's Great Devil Combat exhibition was undoubtedly full of misfortunes. And these disasters were all because of one person, Noah Dole. Now that Noah was no longer here, then in this year's Great Demon Combat Arts exhibition competition, there was no one who could stop Saber-Tooth from reaching the top. At least, this was what the 5 people belonging to Saber-Tooth thought. Unfortunately, after today, These people who thought highly of themselves would realize a cruel fact. That was, even without Noah, the existence called fairy tale was not something that anyone could mess with. When the Great Demon Combat Arts Exhibition competition was in full swing, no one knew. Below the venue, in a cave full of dragon skeletons, two breaths rose and fell, leaving a faint trace of life in this silent space. Accompanied by a soft moan, Xuanai slowly woke up from her sleep and opened her eyes. As soon as she opened her eyes, Xuanai saw an extremely ferocious dragon skeleton. At that moment, Xuanai's heart skipped a beat. She abruptly straightened her body and put one hand on her waist as if it was a conditioned reflex. Originally, all of Xuanai's star keys were there. However, when Xuanai stretched out her hand, she touched nothing. Immediately, Xuanai opened her eyes wide and felt around in a panic. Where's my key? As a star spirit archmage, without her key, Xuanai was no different from an ordinary girl. Of course, the reason why Xuanai was so flustered was not because she did not feel safe without her key. This seemingly strong, but actually very weak girl cherished her star spirit keys very much. As for why, there were two reasons. 1. Among those star spirit keys, there were Pisces, Libra, and Ophiuchus constellations that had accompanied Xuanai all these years. To Xuanai, they were her only companions before joining Fairy Tale. 2. Among those star spirit keys, there were Aries, Gemini, and Scorpio constellations that Noah gave to Xuanai. Xuanai would never forgive herself for losing the key given by the person she yearned for. Therefore, Xuanai looked for her star spirit keys in a panic and looked around. Until then, Xuanai realized that there were huge dragon skeletons all around her. And in front of Xuanai, there was a piece of clothing. A piece of clothing that had just covered Xuanai's body fell to the ground as Xuanai straightened up. Looking at that piece of clothing, Xuanai was stunned. She picked it up and muttered with uncertainty. This seems to be Sir Noah's clothing? This question was answered in the next second. In the dark and deathly silent cave, a series of footsteps slowly sounded and attracted Xuanai's attention. Then Xuanai saw it. In front, Noah was looking around and stroking the dragon skeletons as he walked over and noticed that Xuanai had woken up. Xuanai! Noah was stunned and walked toward Xuanai. Are you awake? Sir Noah. Xuanai's heart calmed down a little, but she still anxiously spoke. Sir Noah, did you see my star spirit key? Your star spirit key is with me. Noah took out a bunch of keys from his pocket and handed it to Xuanai. Because it fell on the ground, I temporarily put it away. Xuanai quietly let out a sigh of relief. She took the key and pressed it in front of her, looking at ease. It wasn't until this moment that Wenno recalled the current situation and looked at Noah hesitantly. Sir Noah, why are we here? What? Noah squatted down and looked at Xuanai. Did you forget what happened before you lost consciousness? Xuanai began to recall. Not long after, Xuanai's hand that was holding the star spirit key tightened as he spoke with some uncertainty. I was attacked? Yes. Noah nodded. Then, I came to look for you. What about Lady Mira and Lady Lisanna? Xuanai panicked. Are the two ladies all right? Mira and Lisanna are fine. Don't worry. Noah held Xuanai's hand and motioned for her to calm down. Lisanna's mana was drained, but that's it. As for Mira, she should be in a competition now. Nothing happened that you need to worry about. Competition? Xuanai was surprised. Then Sir Noah, you, all right. I know you have a lot of questions. Noah sighed. I will explain everything to you. Don't worry. Xuanai nodded uneasily. Then, Noah explained what happened after Xuanai fainted. Knowing that Noah gave up on participating in the Great Demon Battle exhibition because of her, Xuanai's face paled. Chapter 1706. Seeing that Xuanai's face had lost all color, Noah was shocked. Xuanai? What happened to you? Are you not feeling well? Xuanai didn't care about Noah's question. Her body started to shrink and her face became paler and paler. Originally, Xuanai was sitting on the ground and leaning against the wall. The moment she shrank her body, Xuanai was like a helpless child, shrinking into a ball. My fault. Xuanai hugged her knees, her eyes starting to lose focus. It's all my fault. At this moment, Xuanai's heart was filled with despair. As mentioned before, Xuanai was a weak and self-abased young lady. Actually, in Xuanai's eyes, she had always been a person who brought misfortune to others. Since young, the people who accompanied Xuanai, those who were friendly to Xuanai, almost none of them had a good ending. For example, Xuanai's family met with misfortune. In the end, only Xuanai escaped. Another example, Noah saved Xuanai and gave Xuanai a new life. In the end, on Sky Wolf Island, Noah also encountered Aconarolia. Together with his companions in the guild, they were all frozen for an entire 7 years. Misfortune after misfortune, disaster after disaster, they all happened to the people around Xuanai. In this way, how could Xuanai not feel inferior? And this time, Xuanai finally found a new home and was warmly accepted by the people of Fairy Tale. In the end, because of Xuanai, Noah not only agreed to not participate in the Great Demon Martial Arts competition, but also stayed here to accompany her, leaving her companions in Fairy Tale to fight alone. If because Noah didn't participate in the competition, Fairy Tale lost this year's Great Demon Martial Arts competition, then who was to blame? Noah and the others suffered for 7 years, protecting their companions in the guild with difficulty, and their wish to regain their former glory was broken. Then who was to blame? Thinking of this, Xuanai could only think of one reason. It's all my fault. Xuanai seemed to have lost her soul, muttering helplessly and hopelessly. It's all my fault. In the endless self-blame, Xuanai thought of Mira and Lisanna again. In the attack last night, in order to save Xuanai and Lisanna, Mira pushed the 2 girls away and was trapped by the black fog. If it wasn't to save Xuanai and Lisanna, with Myra's strength, Mira wouldn't have been trapped so easily. Then, all of Mana, she, and Xuanai's. That's also my fault, my fault. Xuanai hugged his head and muttered in pain. Those who follow me will all meet with misfortune, will all, Xuanai's right, Nai's, S's color, hers, S's face, her, S right's, her. Xuanai, Nai. It's my fault. Xuanai acted as if he didn't hear anything and muttered in a daze. It's all my fault. Noah was speechless as he watched Xuanai fall into endless self-blame. He raised the hand that was grabbing Xuanai's slender shoulder and held Xuanai's cheek, raising Xuanai's face to face him. Xuanai! Noah looked into her eyes. Look at me! However, Xuanai still didn't react to Noah's words. Her eyes were still unfocused. If this continued, Noah felt that Xuanai would lose all her emotions. That wasn't a joke. Magic came from the heart. Therefore, this was also one of the reasons why Noah lost control of his magic power when he was a child when he was irritable. Of course, it was the same for others. Mira, for example, had come into contact with demons when she was young and awakened a magic that could receive demonic power. That was another example. If Mira hadn't met Noah at that time and joined Fairy Tale, she would have lost her heart sooner or later. She would have been devoured by magic and become a real demon. Now, Xuanai's heart was filled with negative emotions. It was also possible that her magic would go out of control and she would become a walking corpse. Xuanai! Xuanai! Noah patted Xuanai's cheeks, but it didn't have any effect. He gritted his teeth and shouted, "You idiot!" As soon as he finished speaking, Noah abruptly held up Snow's face and lowered his head. In the next moment, Noah kissed Xuanai and captured her lips. Xuanai's eyes widened. The sudden forceful kiss finally caused this young lady, who had nearly lost her mind, to recover. Her unfocused eyes once again began to gather. Her eyes were filled with disbelief as she looked at Noah's face, which was just inches away from her. At this moment, Noah pried open Xuanai's lips and teeth with ease. He captured the tip of Xuanai's tongue and rolled it up with his tongue like a madman. Xuanai's body went limp. She pressed her hands against Noah's chest and weakly endured Noah's domineering kiss. Her heart began to tremble. The intimate contact with the person she longed for caused Xue Nai's mind to go blank. Her face that had originally lost its color gradually became rosy, and even her breathing began to become a little rapid. Under such circumstances, Xue Nai passively endured Noah's powerful kiss. Her tongue was tightly entangled by Noah and she couldn't resist at all. Before long, Xue Nai began to feel suffocated. Only then did Noah let go of Xue Nai and let go of her lips. Xue Nai stared blankly at Noah's face that gradually moved away. She subconsciously raised her hand and covered her mouth. She looked at Noah as if she was dreaming. She still couldn't believe it all. Of course, Xue Nai didn't dislike Noah. Rather, it was the opposite. She even felt that she wasn't good enough for Noah. Now, after being kissed by Noah in such a domineering way, Xue Nai only felt like she was dreaming. Everything became extremely unreal. However, Noah held Xue Nai's face and made her look at him. He stared into her eyes and said, "Listen carefully. Listen carefully, your so-called saying that you will bring misfortune to the people around you, in my opinion, is simply the world's biggest joke." Xue Nai was stunned. Let's not talk about the past for now. But right now, I can tell you very clearly that even if you can bring misfortune to others, it has no effect on me at all, Noah said firmly. I have to shoulder the misfortune of thousands of worlds, and I have to fight against the source of all misfortune. Even so, the world still cares for me, and has never let any misfortune happen to me. You want to affect me with your misfortune alone? Don't make me laugh my head off. Xue Nai didn't understand Noah's words at all. However, Xue Nai was not an idiot. She still understood one thing. That was, Noah seemed to be carrying something that was even heavier than her misfortune alone. It was so heavy that Xue Nai couldn't even imagine the responsibility. I will only say it once, so you have to listen carefully. Undoubtedly, you have to listen clearly. Noah looked straight into Xue Nai's eyes that were shaking because of her wavering. The person who decided not to participate in the great demon battle exhibition was me. The person who decided to stay here with you was also me. Although you are part of the reason, it is not entirely your fault. If you continue to blame yourself like this, then I will really get angry. Sir Noah? Xue Nai looked at Noah in a daze and said almost subconsciously, "But the people who are with me will all have misfortune. The closer the person is to me, the more misfortune will happen. It has always been, so that is a joke." Noah's hand that was holding Xue Nai's face tightened slightly. If that is really the case, then I would like to see what kind of misfortune will happen to me who is close to you. After saying that, Noah lowered his head again and captured Xue Nai's lips. Their tongues intertwined. This time, Xue Nai was completely intoxicated. She timidly and uneasily responded to Noah's domineering kiss. Her heart was lost. Chapter 1707. In the dragon graveyard that was so dark that not a single ray of light could be seen, the cold air spread slightly as if it symbolized eternity, making this space present an indescribable deathly stillness. However, the cold air and the eternal deathly stillness did not extinguish the warmth of the man and woman in this space. Instead, the two of them felt a different kind of heat from the surroundings. His breath hit the air, causing that small area of air to gradually become scorching hot. Noah and Xue Nai hugged each other, leaning against the rock wall in the deepest part of the cave. They felt each other's heartbeat, not feeling that this space was very cold at all. Noah kept hugging Xue Nai like this, caressing her soft hair while kissing her smooth cheeks and lips, making Xue Nai's delicate body tremble slightly. Xue Nai could only respond passively, feeling like she was in a dream. Her beautiful face was slightly red, leaning in Noah's embrace, as if she did not have the slightest bit of strength, not moving at all. After maintaining this state for who knew how long, Noah finally stopped, gazing at Xue Nai's moist eyes and slightly red face, softly saying, "Now, our relationship is close enough, right?" Being stared at by Noah's pitch-black deep eyes, Xue Nai's beautiful face became redder and redder, and she lowered her head in embarrassment, feeling shy and ashamed. "Sorry, Lord Noah," Xue Nai said softly. "I actually showed such a weak appearance in front of you, I really don't have the face to see you again. There is no need to feel ashamed." Noah continued to stroke Xuanai's head and said, "Although there is nothing wrong with being strong, being weak is not a sin. You are only an ordinary girl. Sometimes, learning to rely on others is very important." "Is that so?" Xuanai nodded as if she did not fully understand, softly murmuring, "I feel like I have been saved by Lord Noah again." Noah smiled faintly, extended his hand, and gently brushed it across Xuanai's lips, speaking frankly, "There is nothing bad about it, right? No matter when, a kiss from a beautiful girl is the best gift to any man. I have indeed received this gift, haven't I?" "How? How can that be?" Xuanai's pretty face reddened again, and she said with some panic, "For someone like me, even if Lord Noah dotes on me so much, it can't be considered a thank you gift." "Oh." Noah raised his eyebrows and said with a faint smile, "In other words, a kiss isn't enough to thank me? How are you going to thank me?" With that, Noah moved his mouth close to Xuanai's ear and whispered in a low voice, "For example, give me something more important than a kiss? Something more important than kissing?" Xuanai's heartbeat began to speed up, and her face was already completely red. In the end, Xuanai could only mutter in a voice even softer than a mosquito, "If Lord Noah thinks that someone like me can do it." At this point, Noah should have understood Xuanai's intentions no matter how stupid he was. Obviously, at this point, no matter what Noah wanted to do to the girl in his arms, she wouldn't have any objections. In short, Xuanai's current state was in a state where Noah could do whatever he wanted to her. And Noah wasn't Lu Shahui, so it was impossible for him not to be moved. It's a pity that the location isn't right. Noah pinched Xuanai's little nose, who was extremely shy. "Let's do the rest after we return." Hearing this, Xuanai finally remembered what kind of environment they were in and what kind of situation she was in and what kind of words she said. Thus, shame surged into Xuanai's heart all of a sudden, making her feel too ashamed to face anyone. She could only speak with a red face. "Then let's hurry back." Noah was a little embarrassed and said teasingly, "Are you that anxious to give yourself to me?" "It's not like that." Xuanai shook her head with a red face. "I mean, we should hurry back now. My companions are still in the competition." "That's right." Noah stopped smiling and raised his head to look up. "My companions are in the competition, so leave the rest to me." Xuanai was a little shocked and asked with uncertainty, "Lord Noah, are you not going back to the competition? Elisha and the rest are enough for the competition." Noah narrowed his eyes. Compared to the competition, the inside story of the Great Demon Battle Exhibition is undoubtedly more important. I have to find out what's going on with the solar eclipse plan. Otherwise, there might be a disaster that will drag everyone into it. "Does Lord Noah intend to stay here?" Xuanai asked after a moment of silence. "Until after the Great Demon Battle Exhibition is over?" "That's right." Noah nodded. "That guy named Law seems to be planning something. For this reason, he did not hesitate to expose himself in front of me, capture you here, and threaten me with death. He definitely has a big plan. Moreover, behind him, there seems to be the shadow of the kingdom. This year's Great Demon Battle Arts Exhibition Tournament is full of mysteries. If these mysteries are not solved, no one knows what will happen. Originally, it would take a lot of effort to solve these mysteries, but that guy called Law is just too confident. He seems to think that once the Great Demon Battle Exhibition is over and his plan succeeds, then I will no longer be able to do anything." Noah pursed his lips and smiled. "So, as long as I stay here, that guy will definitely confess everything to me when the Great Demon Battle Exhibition is over. Since that's the case, there's no need for me to investigate on my own. I'll just wait for him to reveal everything himself." "But what about the Great Demon Battle Exhibition?" Xuanai asked worriedly. "Without Noah-sama's participation, can the lords in the guild win? It should be known that in this year's Great Demon Battle Exhibition, not only is there the Saber-Tooth, who has always been the champion in the past, but there are also unimaginably strong enemies in the other guilds. For example, in this year's Great Demon Battle Exhibition, only Noah can firmly suppress the Saber-Tooth of the Lamia scale. Another example is Kagura of the Mermaid Heel, who is known as the strongest sorcerer in this year's Great Demon Battle exhibition besides the Saber-Tooth. Her strength must be very strong. In the other guilds, like the Cotter Cerberus, there are also S-rank sorcerers who can compete with Elusha. And although the sorcerers of the Blue Pegasus aren't very strong, the application of magic is very diverse and suitable for all kinds of situations, so they can't be underestimated. In addition, there is also the Raventail who is secretly watching the fairy tale. Without Noah's participation, the situation won't be very good, right? In this regard, Noah has a different opinion. Maybe without my participation, the situation won't be as smooth as before, but that doesn't mean that our guild situation is very bad. Noah said. Although the Saber-Tooth is very strong, Laxus should be able to barely match him. Kagura naturally can't be ignored, but we also have Elusha and Mira. Although the other guilds are also difficult to deal with, it's a pity that in terms of difficulty, our guild is definitely not weaker than the other guilds. As for the Raventail, Noah smiled indifferently. That guild no longer exists. No longer exists? Yukino suddenly froze. Noah didn't explain and just hugged the weak and cute girl. He raised his head and looked up, the corners of his mouth rising little by little. Presumably, the Great Demonic Combat Arts exhibition will cause quite a bit of chaos because of Raventail's absence, right? Yukino blinked, obviously not understanding. However, Noah's trust in the guild also affected Yukino, making her feel relieved and silently cheering for her guild. Chapter 1708. Just as Noah expected, because Raventail had not arrived for a long time, everyone in the venue was talking about it. In the two contestant areas of Fairy Tale, everyone had gathered together to discuss this matter. In the end, there was only one conclusion that everyone came to. It seems that something must have happened to Raventail. Elusha said thoughtfully. If the person who attacked Mira and Lisana yesterday and took Shuanai away is Raventail, then the reason why that guild is not here is most likely that Noah has taken care of them, right? This was the conclusion that everyone came to. After all, this was the only conclusion that was consistent with the current situation. But if that's the case, Noah, who has taken care of Raventail, should be able to come back. Gray said. Now, Noah hasn't come back yet. There should be a deeper reason, right? In other words, Lucy hesitated for a while and said tentatively, the whereabouts of Noah and Raventail are unknown. It's very likely that they are together now, or even fighting. How could that be the reason? Gadjaloo curled his lips. I don't think a Raventail would be able to hold that guy back for so long. Hearing Gadjaloo's words, everyone looked at each other and nodded in agreement. Obviously, no one believed that the power of the Raventail was enough to keep Noah out for the entire night. There must be a deeper reason for this. It's really troublesome. Nazi held his head and looked unhappy. If you want to have a showdown, why don't you just come and find trouble with us in a fair and square manner? Why do they have to make things so troublesome? It's because there's no chance of winning in a head-on confrontation that those people would do such a thing. Lucy warned. Nazi, don't mess around anymore. The president is already making arrangements. We just need to focus on our game. Lucy is right. Elusha nodded and looked around at everyone. In any case, it's better that Ivan's guild is not here. This way, we don't have to worry about what they will do in secret. However, as soon as this sentence fell, another voice sounded. It's a pity that Ivan's guild is not here. For us, it's not just a good thing. With that said, Makarov, dressed in a suit, walked out of the corridor in front of everyone. There's a piece of news that I don't know if it's good or bad. Makarov said with a serious expression. Because Raventail didn't show up and no one was found at the hotel they were staying at, the organizers have decided to disqualify Raventail from the competition. Everyone immediately burst into laughter. Only Wendy tilted her head and asked in confusion. But why don't we know if this news is good or bad? Because, after disqualifying Raventail, the number of teams participating in the competition will be reduced to 7. This way, putting aside the competition part, there will be no way to pair up for the duel part. Makarov sighed. So, the organizers have decided to let us combine Team A and Team B and choose a new team to participate in the competition. This news made everyone frown. Combine the teams. That was not a good thing for Fairy Tale, who had the upper hand. After all, originally, if two teams participated in the competition together, the chances of winning would increase. Now that they were combined, Fairy Tale's advantage was gone. However, currently, Team A and Team B were in first and second place respectively. This was an advantage that could not be ignored. After the combination, how will the points be calculated? Laxus looked at Makarov, crossed his arms, and asked calmly. Although the two teams are in first and second place respectively, the points won't be the same, right? This has already been decided. Makarov said helplessly. After the combination, we will use the results of the team with the lower score. At this moment, everyone frowned. One must know that Team B had 44 points, while Team A only had 37 points. There was a difference of 7 points. Sabretooth, who was in third place, scored 34 points. If they were to use the results of the team with the lower score, then the gap between Fairy Tale and Sabretooth would be much smaller. It would be very easy for them to surpass each other. Isn't this unfair to us? Zhu Bian said angrily. Even if we combine our teams, we should use the results of the team with the higher score. That's right. Karna also nodded. Two of our guild's teams have passed the qualifiers and obtained the qualifications to participate in the official competition. Now, they're merging our teams without permission. Not only are they destroying our advantage, but they're also trying to make it even smaller. Are the organizers deliberately suppressing us to make the competition more exciting and suspenseful? Maybe that's part of the reason. Makarov raised his head and looked at everyone present. But the bigger reason should be that the organizers are suspicious of us, right? Suspicious? Everyone was stunned. Only Ilusha understood what Makarov meant. I see. Ilusha narrowed her eyes. Because Noah wasn't present, the organizers are suspecting that our guild let Noah attack Raventail to eliminate the competition. Is that against the rules? That's right. Makarov stroked his beard. But that's just suspicion at best. So, the organizers didn't disqualify us from the competition. Instead, they let us combine and use the results of the team with the lower score. They are probably trying to cover up this matter. Cover up? Lucy couldn't help but interject. That can't be considered a suspicion, but it's basically confirmed that Noah did something to the Raventail. It can't be helped. Our guild has too many connections with Ivan's guild. Moreover, before the Great Magic Combat Arts competition started, Noah and Ivan had an argument on the street. They have enough reason to think that we did it. Makarov spread his hands. Besides, do you really think that Ivan's guild not being present has nothing to do with Noah? Everyone immediately shut their mouths. So, the organizers are already giving us face by not disqualifying us from the competition. Makarov raised a finger. Now, let's regroup the team. So, after some discussion, Lucy, Wendy, Kana, Julian, and Mira withdrew from the competition. A new team was formed by Ilusha, Naz, Gray, Gadjaloo, and Laxus. Originally, in terms of combat power, Mira should also be selected, but Mira was still worried about Lisanna in the hotel, so she took the initiative to give up her position and return to the hotel to take care of Lisanna. After regrouping the team, today's competition could finally begin. And the person who appeared in the competition was Ilusha. Ilusha, who walked into the venue, suddenly felt a very strong gaze. She raised her head and looked over. She saw that in front of her, Miniba was staring at Ilusha, revealing an unpleasant smile, and said so. Without that monster, can the sprite still defeat the tiger? Hearing this, Ilusha's eyes flashed, and a strong smile full of determination appeared on her face. It's a pity that our guild is filled with monsters, Shifeng said, shaking his head. Miniba's eyes narrowed, and her smile became cold. Chapter 1709. The competition had officially begun. However, as soon as Chabadi announced the start of the competition from the rostrum, all the spectators fell silent. They looked at each other with a confused look on their faces. Not only the spectators, but even the magic shooters from the major guilds looked at the battle in the center of the field in amazement. They were somewhat unable to react. Taking a closer look, a huge water ball with a diameter of more than 100 meters was suspended in the air. In the huge water ball, there were two girls in swimsuits. One was wearing a bold red bikini, showing off her perfect figure, but she was looking at Alusha with a dignified face. The other one was wearing a conservative swimsuit like a training suit. She was floating in the water with a victorious smile on her face. Aside from Elusa and Miniba, the other contestants from the other guilds were lying on the ground outside the giant water sphere. They were also wearing swimsuits, and their bodies were soaking wet. They all had blank looks on their faces. Looking at this strange situation on the platform, Chapati was extremely surprised and puzzled. At the beginning of the competition, except for contestant Alusha from Fairy Tale and contestant Miniba from Saber-Tooth, all the other contestants fell out of the field and were directly eliminated. What the hell is going on? Chapati's report made all the spectators talk about it. Only Alusha, who was in the water ball, still looked at Miniba with a dignified face and said in a deep voice, "What did you do?" The fourth day of the Great Magic Battle Arts exhibition was a naval battle. As the name implied, although the battle was not in the sea, the contestants were required to enter the water ball in the center of the venue to fight and find ways to stay in the water ball. Once they were hit by the huge water ball, they were considered to be eliminated. The first person to come out of the water ball was the last person. The second person to be hit out was the second to last person. And so on, until the third person was born, when there were only two people left in the water ball. From then on, the special rules were used. The so-called special rule referred to the 5-minute rule. When there were only two people left in the water ball, a 5-minute countdown would begin. Within the next 5 minutes, if one of the remaining two people was hit by a water ball, that person would fall to the last place. If the remaining two did not get hit by the water ball after 5 minutes, then even if one of them was hit, he would still be able to get second place. The organizers probably wanted to make the competition more interesting, so they used such a rule. However, no one expected that. As soon as the competition started, apart from Alusha and Miniba, all the other contestants from the other 4 guilds mysteriously fell out of the water ball. Everyone was puzzled by this unbelievable situation. However, Alusha could feel it clearly. At the start of the match, a very special magic emerged from Miniba's body. Therefore, there was no doubt that all of this was Miniba's doing. In other words, in just a moment, Miniba used a method that even Alusha was not aware of to eliminate the rest of the contestants, and only Alusha remained. To this, Miniba just laughed. "This is my magic, a magic that manipulates space." A magic that manipulates space? Alusha was slightly startled, but she immediately understood. "Don't tell me you can use magic to manipulate space and teleport as you wish?" "That's it." Miniba raised one hand, and then, on that hand, a wave of space began to vibrate, condensing into a ball of light. "It's not just me. As long as it's within my sight, I can use this magic to move everything I want. Once the competition starts, I'll throw out all those fellows who are in my way. How about that? Very good magic, right?" Hearing Miniba's words, the surrounding audience suddenly understood. However, not only did Alusha not feel relieved, her pretty face became more and more tense, and her gaze towards Miniba became extremely sharp. "If that's the case, why don't you teleport me out as well? That way you'll win, right? Not just win." As long as Miniba teleported Alusha out now, then, under the rule of 5 minutes, Alusha would directly fall to the last place. For Saber-Tooth, who had been hostile to Fairy Tale, wasn't this the situation that they wanted to see the most? However, Miniba teleported the rest of the contestants out, but left Alusha alone, and didn't teleport her out, letting the 5 minutes continue to pass. Could it be that Miniba wanted to humiliate Alusha by teleporting her out at the last moment of the 5 minutes? Directly teleporting you out and making you the last place, that's not bad. Miniba smiled rather coldly. Unfortunately, that'd be too boring. Boring? Alusha's pair of eyes began to gradually condense. "Is it because of this reason that you deliberately let me stay?" That's right, Meniba admitted frankly, but the words that came out of her mouth made people's hearts turn cold. Isn't your fairy tale very powerful? Isn't there an existence that humans can't compare to? But you can't be thinking of taking the title of the strongest from us by yourself, right? Then let me see what kind of ability you have. Our saber-tooth is the strongest. Meniba looked at Alusha with extremely cold eyes. Want to take away our title of the strongest? Just a little fairy, don't be too complacent. The audience suddenly became silent. Alusha just stared at Meniba. After a long while, she relaxed her body, and her eyes became sharp. You didn't teleport me out of the arena at the first moment, but you still openly explained the effect of your magic to me. Who is the one who is complacent? I'll prove it to you. As soon as her voice fell, clink, Alusha's body suddenly bloomed with dazzling light. Seeing this scene, Meniba's smile became vicious. She raised one hand, and a wave of magic light gathered in her hand, emitting bursts of spatial fluctuations. At this moment, Alusha, whose whole body bloomed with dazzling light, moved. Accompanied by a faint sound of breaking through the air, Alusha's figure disappeared in place, turning into a dazzling light shadow. With an extremely terrifying speed, she drew a perfect arc in the water and violently shot toward Meniba's direction. Meniba, who was preparing to slowly torture Alusha to vent her anger, was shocked. However, before Meniba could react, the light shadow rushed to her back and fiercely hit Meniba's body. Bang! Even in the water, a muffled sound could be clearly heard. Meniba, who suffered a heavy blow, directly spat out the air in her mouth, and her whole body flew backward. After a while, she reacted, trying to stabilize her body, and suddenly raised her head and looked forward. There, Alusha's figure slowly appeared from the dazzling light. However, Alusha's red bikini swimsuit had disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by an animal costume. It was a costume that looked like a cat and a leopard, with animal ears on the head. Wearing this animal costume, Alusha held two knight swords in her hands, and a pair of eyes suddenly opened. Then, under Meniba's gaze, she turned into a phantom, like an arrow leaving the bow, and once again violently shot out. That speed was just like a torpedo in the water, leaving only a faint trace, and stirring up a surge of water. Meniba turned pale with fright, and directly swept over her body. Poochie! In the tearing sound, a sword light cut through Meniba's side abdomen, and Meniba let out a scream. Chapter 1710. What? In the contestant area of Saber-Tooth, Sting, Logue, Lucifer, and Alyaga watched as Meniba's side was slashed by the sword light in the water ball. They all turned pale with fright as Meniba let out a cry of pain. On the contrary, when the audience saw the sudden change in the situation, they all began to cheer. Under such circumstances, in the water ball, Alusha, who was dressed like a wild animal, directly turned into a flash of light. Like lightning, she repeatedly dashed through the water at a speed that couldn't be seen by the naked eye. It was as if she came from all directions, and the sword light slashed Meniba's body one after another. Poochie, poochie, poochie! A series of tearing sounds resounded. Ah! Meniba's scream resounded. After being slashed repeatedly by Alusha, who had turned into a flash of light, Meniba felt a sharp pain all over her body. This girl with a somewhat twisted personality, whose face was covered with heavy makeup, began to show a trace of pain. The sharp pain from all over her body finally made Meniba react. She tightly bit her lips and her face twisted. Damn it! After angrily shouting, Meniba fiercely spread out her hands, and a wave of magic light fluctuated in her hands. Suddenly, one wave of magic light after another appeared around Alusha, who had turned into a flash of light. Moreover, the magic inside began to riot. In the next moment, the magic light waves exploded one after another. Bang, 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 bang. Accompanied by a series of explosions, the magic light waves turned into the most direct impact. Like bombs, they exploded one after another, setting off waves of turbulence in the water. Not only could Meniba's magic be used to control space, but she could also change the properties of the space that her magic was used on. For example, if he added the fire attribute like just now, the space controlled by Meniba would directly turn into heat and explode like a bomb. The destructive power and lethality would be very strong. However, in the face of those continuous explosions, Ilusha was like a flash of lightning. She was extremely fast, constantly dodging the exploding space. She was flashing in the turbulence and wasn't affected at all. So fast. Meniba's expression changed. At this moment, Ilusha swept through space again. The night sword in her hand suddenly flashed, and the sword light once again slashed through Meniba's body. Poochie! With another tearing sound, Meniba's shoulder was fiercely slashed. The sharp pain assaulted her mind, causing Meniba to scream out in pain. For a moment, Meniba was completely unable to do anything to Ilusha. She endured the slashes from all directions and continuously let out miserable cries. How is this possible? In the contestant area of Sabertooth, Sting tightly grasped the railing, his eyes full of disbelief. Milady can't even fight back against that Ilusha Shukalito. No, the problem lies with Ilusha Shukalito's armor. Lucius' expression became serious. Ilusha Shukalito uses magic to change equipment. She can change equipment at will. Right now, the armor she's wearing is called flying armor. It can increase the user's speed by several levels. So, Milady's magic can't catch up with that woman? Olga was also shocked. Is that Ilusha Shukalito really that strong? Ilusha Shukalito is indeed very strong, but in my memory, she's not strong enough to make Milady unable to fight back. Lucius stared at the huge water ball in midair and said in a deep voice, "There must be some other reason." Rog also stared at the water ball that was constantly transforming into flashes of light that swept past Meniba's body. After a while, Ilusha suddenly widened her eyes as she slashed at Meniba's body one after another, causing sword lights to shoot out from all directions and slash at Meniba's body. After a long while, she suddenly opened her eyes wide. Ilusha Shukalito's weapon isn't an ordinary weapon. Hearing Roger's voice, everyone was shocked. It wasn't until this moment that they realized with difficulty. In Ilusha's hand, which was constantly sweeping through space like a flash of light, one of the two night swords looked like a fish's fin. It was dark green all over. "That's..." Lucius said in shock. "In my memory, that seems to be a weapon that goes with Sea Emperor's armor." As soon as this was said, everyone immediately understood. Ilusha didn't just use the flying armor that could provide super high speed, she also used the Sea Emperor's armor that had a great resistance to water. That water attribute magic weapon completely cut through the resistance and pressure of water, allowing Ilusha to walk as if she was walking on flat ground and could increase her speed by several levels. On the contrary, Meniba was hindered by the resistance of water and her movements were somewhat sluggish. With one increasing and one decreasing, Meniba simply couldn't adapt to Ilusha's super high speed and could only passively endure the attacks. Poochie! The sword light was like lightning. With the support of the flying armor, it quickly slashed through Meniba's body, causing Meniba to be heavily injured and covered in cuts and bruises. In the midst of the screams, Meniba heard Ilusha's indifferent voice. "If you had used your magic to teleport me out from the beginning, then I definitely wouldn't have been able to beat you in this battle. Unfortunately, you were too confident in your own strength and your own advantages. Now, your magic can't catch up with me at all, and in the water, you can't be unaffected like me. This is the result. Your arrogance led to your defeat, Meniba." While speaking, Ilusha, who had turned into a flash of light, suddenly flashed behind Meniba. Her body spun, and one of her legs was like a whip, violently lashing out. Along with a surge of water, it heavily whipped Meniba's side waist. Bang! In the midst of the muffled sound, Meniba screamed again. Her whole body was sent flying by the powerful leg whip. In the end, Meniba flew out of the water ball and fell heavily on the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. "The battle is over." Chapati immediately raised the microphone and announced loudly. On the fourth day of the Great Demon Martial Arts Competition, the reorganized team, Fairy Tail, won first place in the sea battle. In the water ball, Ilusha, who was wearing the flying armor, raised the Sea Emperor's sword high in the air, causing the entire audience to burst into enthusiastic cheers, welcoming the victory. Compared to the loud cheers from the audience, the contestant area of Saber-Tooth was silent. "Impossible!" Sting murmured as if he had lost his soul. Miss actually lost. Rog, Lucius, and Olyaga were also silent. It was no wonder that their performance was so unbearable. First of all, they had already determined that Fairy Tale, without Noah, was no match for Saber-Tooth. Now, after being slapped in the face by Alusha, these people were already dumbfounded. Secondly, Miniba, who could control space magic, was the strongest sorcerer in Saber-Tooth. Even Sting and Rog of the Twin Dragons were no match for her. How could Sting and the others believe their eyes that Miniba was so easily defeated by Fairy Tale? Miniba, who was lying on the ground, looked at the sky in disbelief and murmured, "I lost." These words were buried in the rising and falling cheers of the crowd. And the cheers were simply the biggest mockery for Miniba, who was defeated by Alusha because of her carelessness. At that moment, Miniba raised her head and looked at Alusha, who was holding her weapon high in the water ball and enjoying the cheers of the audience. In her eyes, there was unimaginable rage and viciousness. "Alusha, Shukalito, that you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.